radio version of Patrick Hamilton's famous thriller set in the late 1920s. It stars Alan Rickman as Rupert Cadell and Adam Bareham as Wyndham Brandon, with Andrew Branch as Charles Granillo, Cyril Luckham as Sir Johnstone Kentley, and Moir Leslie as Leila Arden. Rope by Patrick Hamilton.
All right. I'll lock it. Put the key in my pocket and turn on the light.
Put out that light! Put out that light!
All right, steady, Grano. Feeling yourself, Grano? Feeling yourself again, Grano?
Give me some matches.
Matches? Here you are. Coming. Isn't it about time you pulled yourself together, Grano? Sabot will be here in a quarter of an hour.
You fully understand, Brandon, what we've done.
Do I know what I've done? Yes, I know quite well what I've done. I have done murder.
Yes.
I have committed murder. I have committed passionless, motiveless, faultless, and clueless murder. Bloodless and noiseless murder.
Yes.
An immaculate murder. I have killed. I have killed for the sake of danger and for the sake of killing. And I am alive. Truly and wonderfully alive. That's what I've done, Grano. What's the matter? You getting superstitious?
No, I'm not superstitious.
Then may I put on the light?
No, you mayn't. Brandon.
Yes?
You remember when Ronald came in?
What do you mean, when Ronald came in?
When Ronald came in here, when he came in from the car, you were standing at the door.
Yes?
Did you see anyone standing there? Up the street, about 70 yards?
No.
But there was someone, there was a man. I saw him, I remembered.
Well, what of it?
Nothing. Brandon.
Yes?
When I met him, coming out of the Colosseum, when I met him and got him into the car, ready to bring him here, why shouldn't someone have seen us then?
What do you mean by someone?
Someone, anyone. Did we think of that, Brandon?
I did.
It's in the room, you know. Do you think we'll get away with it?
When, tonight?
Yes.
Are you suggesting that some psychic force emanating from this chest is going to advise Sir Johnstone Kentley of the fact that the remains, or shall I say, the lifeless entirety of his 20-year-old son and heir is contained therein? My dear Granillo, if you're feeling in any way insecure, perhaps I'd better fortify you with a brief summary of facts. With mathematics, as it were. Let me please give you... What?
Listen, I tell you. It's all right. I thought it was Sabot.
Sabot, in the first place, will not be here until 9:05, if then, for Sabot is seldom punctual. Sabot, in the second place, has been deprived by a wily master of his key. He will therefore ring. Let me, I say, give you a cool narration of our transactions. This afternoon, at about 2:00, young Ronald Kentley, our fellow undergraduate, left his father's house with the object of visiting the Colosseum Music Hall. He did so. After the performance, he was met in the street by your good self and invited to this house. He was then given tea, and at 6:45 precisely, done to death by strangulation and rope. He was subsequently deposited in this chest. Tonight, at 9:00, his father, Sir Johnstone Kentley, and 3 well-chosen friends of ours will come round here for regalement. They will talk small talk and depart. After the party at 11 o'clock...
It isn't a slip, is it, Brandon?
Oh, my dear Granillo, have we not already agreed that the entire beauty and piquancy of the evening will reside in the party itself? Now, at 11 o'clock tonight, I was saying, you and I will leave by car for Oxford. We will carry our fellow undergraduate. Our fellow undergraduate will never be heard of again. Our fellow undergraduate will not be murdered. He will be missing. That is the complete story and the perfection of criminality. The complete story of the perfect crime. I'm quite lucid, am I not?
Yes.
The party itself, Granillo, you see, so far from being our vulnerable point, is the very apex, as it were, and consummation of our feat. Consider its ingredients. I still don't think we could have chosen better. There will be first, and by all means foremost, Sir Johnstone Kentley, the father of the occupant of the chest. It is he, as the father, who gives the entire macabre quality of the evening. Well chosen so far. We then, of course, require his wife, but she, being an invalid, was unobtainable, alas.
Hello? Hello? What? What? Put out that light! Put out that light, I tell you!
Steady, Grano!
Hello, hello!
Will you put down that receiver, Grano? You're telling London you're afraid! Come over here and sit down.
Yes. Well, go on.
There are then Kenneth Raglan and Leila Arden. They have been asked for their youth, innocence and good spirits alone. Also in Raglan, who went to the same school and is at the same university as ourselves, you have about the most perfect specimen of ordinary humanity obtainable, and therefore a suitable witness to this so extraordinary scene. So, unintellectual humanity is represented. The same applies to Leila, his female counterpart. We then come to Rupert. Now, in Rupert, Grano, we have a very intriguing proposition. Rupert, in fact, is about the one man alive who might have seen this thing from our angle. That is, the artistic one. You will recall that we even contemplated at one time inviting him to share our dangers, and we eventually turned the notion down, not necessarily because it would have been too much for him to swallow intellectually, but simply because he would not have had the nerve. Rupert is a damnably brilliant poet, but perhaps a little too fastidious. So, he is in the same blissless ignorance as the rest. Nevertheless, he is intellect's representative and valued at that. Grano?
Yes?
What's the time?
Nearly 5 to 9.
Sabot will be here at any moment now.
I know.
May I put on the light?
Oh, must you?
Yes, I must.
Can't you go on talking?
No, I can't, I'm afraid.
Go on. I'm all right. Put it on. I'm better now.
Thank you. I thought you were going to lose your nerve for a moment, Granny.
So did I. But I wasn't.
God, you fool! Didn't I tell you to check up in here?
What?
On the floor. Look at this. The boys' Colosseum ticket. We could hang on that.
Oh,
What in heaven's name?
give it to me. It must have fallen out of my waistcoat pocket. I put it here.
Damnation, that's Sabot. Now, for God's sake, quiet yourself and sit down. Read the paper or play the piano or something.
Good idea. The piano.
Play something soothing. I'll let Sabot in. Sorry for my little outburst, Grano, but it rather upset me.
Not at all. You were right.
What's the time?
It's just after 5:02.
Then we can expect our first guest.
Yes.
I must go and let Sabot in. Evening, Sabot.
Good evening, sir. Sorry I'm a little late.
Never mind, Sabot. The food's already in the kitchen. As the dining room's all covered with books, will you lay the supper on the chest in the sitting room?
But I can bring the table from upstairs, sir.
Oh, no, that's all right, Sabot. Lay it on the chest.
No, sir, it will be no trouble to bring from upstairs.
Nevertheless, Sabot, lay it on the chest, will you?
Very good, sir. In here?
In here.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Sabot. That's it. Plates and things on the sideboard, please. Food on the chest, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, perfect. Here we are. He's early, whoever it is.
To bring in here, sir?
Yes, in here.
Very good, sir.
Don't stop playing, Granny.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yes, please do.
This way.
I'm not late, am I?
No, sir. Mr. Raglan, sir.
Hello, Raglan, old man. Come right in. You know Granillo, don't you?
Rather. Quite a long time since we met, though. Yes, isn't it? Oh. I say, I'm terribly sorry. I've come dressed.
My dear fellow, my fault entirely. Come and seat yourself. I should have explained. You see, we're going up to Oxford tonight.
Oh, no. Are you? I'm not going up till Friday.
Now, what are you going to drink? You can have gin and Italian or gin and Angostura, and I can do you a very nice gin and French.
I should like gin and it, I think.
Gin and it, right. Yes, we leave tonight about 12 and travel by automobile in the, let us hope, moonlight. And of course, this place is simply covered with books.
Covered with books?
Yes, in the next room. I've come into a library. Here's your gin and it.
Oh, thanks. Come into a library?
Yes. Did you ever hear of old Jerry Wickham, Kenneth? An uncle of mine.
Oh, yes, rather.
Well, you'll know that he's died just lately.
Oh, has he? Yes?
Well, it's his library, which is very kindly and unexpectedly bestowed upon me.
Good Lord.
To the unspeakable mortification of Sir Johnstone Kentley.
Oh, Sir Johnstone Kentley. He's quite a famous collector, isn't he?
Yes, he's coming here tonight.
Good heavens, is he? It is the same man, isn't it? He lives in Grosvenor Square and has a son.
Quite right, Kenneth. He lives in Grosvenor Square. And has a son. Have you got a drink, Grano? Oh, yes. Well, drink up, Kenneth.
Cheer. Tell me, Sir Johnstone's son, isn't that Ronald Kentley, the lad who's so frightfully good at sports?
That's right. You don't know him, do you?
No. I've never met him, but he wins hurdles and hundreds of yards and things like that, doesn't he?
Yes, that's right. As a matter of fact, he's the living image of yourself. Isn't he, Grano?
Yes. Yes, he is like me. In what way?
Oh, in every way. Same age, same height, same colour, same sweet and refreshing innocence.
Oh, shut up. I'm not an athlete anyway.
No, but you're just as much alive. In fact, more so.
Am I? Then you're having Sir Johnstone here just sort of to make him grind his teeth with envy about the books, then?
Oh, on the contrary. I'm going to let him have exactly what he wants, provided I don't want it. But I'm telling you all this, Kenneth, just to excuse the terrible mess we're in. You'll observe that we're having our meal off a chest.
Oh, yes. I thought it looked rather weird.
Good Lord, Kenneth. You're getting positively fat.
Am I?
Nothing like the little boy who used to fag for me at school.
Lord, that's a while ago.
Oh, it doesn't seem so very long.
Of course, I used to think you an absolute hero in those days, Brandon.
Did you? Well, as a matter of fact, I was always more or less popular amongst the juniors.
It was I who was the unpopular one.
Were you unpopular, Grano?
Oh, yes, I remember I used to loathe you in those days.
There you are.
Why did you loathe him?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose games were the only things that ever counted in those days. I'm sure it was most unreasonable.
It was, I assure you. I'm very harmless.
Here we are. I wonder if that's Rupert. Did you ever meet Rupert, Kenneth? Rupert Cadell?
No, I can't say that I have.
No, he was before your time, wasn't he? Aha! the ravishing Leila. Come along, my dear, this way. How are you? You know Granillo, don't you?
Hello.
How do you do?
And this is Kenneth. Mr. Raglan, Miss Arden.
Hello.
Hello. Now, what are you going to have, Leila? Kenneth's having a gin and it.
I'd adore one.
Gin and it shall be.
Of course, I simply know that I've seen you somewhere before.
Really?
You're not a Frinton-on-Sea expert, are you?
No, I just go there occasionally, that's all.
How weird, because I could simply swear that I've seen you somewhere before.
How weird.
Previous incarnation, I expect. Here you are, Leila.
Thank you.
Excuse mess. We're in a horrible mess here altogether. Kenneth will tell you about it. I've come into a library.
Come into a library, my dear.
Yes. And I hope you don't think you're going to get anything to eat, because all the servants are away and we're very humble.
No, you told me that, and I had a simply gluttonous high tea. Gorged, my dear.
Oh, well, that's all right. I really wouldn't have asked you, only this is the last chance of seeing you before we go up.
Are you going up tonight, then?
Yes.
Of course, I'm feeling absolutely ghastly coming dressed like this.
Why? I'm sure I ought to be dressed too. Of course, you must admit, my dear, this is a most mysterious and weird meal.
Why? Mysterious and weird?
Oh, I don't know, Grano. Just mysterious and weird. Such a queer time to begin with.
Here we are. I'll bet you that's old Kentley. Forgive me a moment, I must go and usher him in.
Who's the newcomer?
The newcomer, Leila, is the revered Sir Johnstone Kentley, who has come here to look at books.
My dear.
Unless it's Rupert, which of course it may be. Oh, no. No, it's Sir Johnstone, all right.
Which, of course, can never be done. How do you do, Granillo? And how are you getting on?
Oh, very well, thank you, sir.
Now, let me introduce you all. Miss Arden, Sir Johnstone Kentley.
How do you do?
Do?
And this is Mr. Kenneth Raglan.
How do you do, sir?
What do you do?
And here, Sir Johnstone, is an armchair, which I think is more or less in your line. And here is a chest, from which we're going to feed, the table having been commandeered for books.
Oh, that chest. It's not a Cassone, is it?
No, sir, it's not genuine. It's a reproduction, but it's a rather nice piece. I got it in Italy. Now, will you have a cocktail, sir?
Oh, good heavens, no, my boy. Now, these books I'm going to see, where are they?
Oh, they're in the other room, the dining room. I laid them out as well as I could, and there's more space in there.
Oh, I shall be most interested to see them, most interested. I seem to remember that Wyndham had a really remarkable little lot of Shakespeareana.
Yes. Ah, that will be Rupert. I'm afraid, sir, the folios were sold before Wyndham died. But there's a run of the quartos and a really amazing lot of Baconian stuff. At least I'm told it's very fine.
Mr. Cadell, sir.
Ah, here he is. Last as usual. Come along in, Rupert. Mr. Cadell, Miss Leila Arden.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Mr. Cadell, Sir Johnstone Kentley.
How do you do, sir?
How do you do?
Mr. Raglan, Mr. Cadell.
How do you do?
But tell me, I don't quite follow. Have I come dressed, or have others come undressed? I telephoned an inquiry, but could not obtain, any answer.
Now contain yourself, Rupert, and sit down.
What in heaven is this?
This is a chest, Rupert, and we're going to have our meal off it.
Oh, are we?
Yes,
Why are we going to have our meal off a chest?
because it's a very nice chest, and because all the tables are covered with books.
Yes, haven't you heard? The entire place is covered with library.
No.
Now, Rupert, are you going to have a cocktail?
No, thank you. I've had 4 already.
4?
Yes, why? Aren't I carrying my drink?
Yes, you're carrying it all right. It's just rather a mean advantage, that's all.
That's all right, Sabot. I'll ring when we're through, then you can clear and get away.
Thank you, sir.
When do we begin to have our meal off a chest? Because I'm personally rather peckish.
We're starting right away, Rupert. Now, look here, you people. There are lots of plates and knives and things on the sideboard, and lots of sandwiches and things on the chest. Pate, caviar, salmon and cucumber, whatnot. All you've got to do is to rally round and help yourselves.
That's marvellous. Come on, then. Splendid.
Oh, look at this. I adore caviar, don't you?
Yes, rather. Wait a minute, and I'll get you some. What will you have, sir? Yes, do you want some?
Just a sandwich, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Are you the great Cadell?
The great Cadell, sir. Why? Do you know anything about me?
Well, I've read your poems, that's all. Or at least a lot of them.
Dear me, I hope you're not confusing me with the other Cadell, sir.
No, I don't think so. You write poems, don't you?
I am told so, sir, but then so does the other Cadell, a devastating creature who spells it with 2 Ds.
Oh no, there's no confusion.
I never knew you could spell Cadell with 2 Ds.
Same here.
Yes, same here. I knew a Cadell once, and she used to spell it with only 1 D, Louisa Cadell. Horrible old hag she was, too. She lived in Bayswater.
Dear heaven, the young man is alluding to my aunt.
Oh, I say, I'm terribly sorry. Have I dropped a brick?
No, you've said a mouthful. Can I have another sandwich? I say, must we have our meal off a chest?
Is Lady Kentley any better, sir?
No, I'm afraid not. I'm afraid she's still in bed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and how's Ronald getting on?
Oh, Ronald. Oh, he's getting on all right. He's merely idling, of course, now, like you two.
Does he like it, or does he want to get back?
Oh, no, he doesn't want to get back. He has a great time.
Who's Ronald?
Ronald, he's my son and heir. 20 years of age.
Oh, I know Ronald. He was in the papers the other day for winning the high jump at the varsity sports.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, I remember it well. There was a picture of me next door to it.
Oh, what's that?
Yes. Not, though, for winning the high jump. Oh, yes, quite an old friend.
Yes, he's a sprightly lad, is Ronald.
Brandon says he's like me. Is that true, sir?
Yes, he is rather like you when you come to think of it. Quite like, really.
I've a double, apparently.
My dear, how excruciating.
In what way is he like me, sir?
Well, I don't know, just in general usefulness.
And innocence and freshness and gaiety.
Shut up, Brandon.
He's so afraid they won't think him a man, isn't he?
That's like Ronald, too. I'm afraid they won't feel like that for long, though.
No, they won't, poor dears.
Of course. My boy's the most infantile thing in the world. I honestly believe his only passion in holiday time is the movies. When I saw him at lunch, he was just rushing off to the Coliseum.
Yeah, but that's not the movies, is it? I thought it was a music hall. Not that I know. I've never been there in my life.
Never been to the Colosseum.
Why should he have been to the Coliseum?
I thought everybody had been.
Well, I haven't.
Neither have I. Is that the place in the Haymarket?
My dear Grano, you're mixing it up with the Capitol. What abysmal ignorance.
He would have been a sad dog as an ancient Roman, Granillo.
Yes, he would. Indeed, in the days of the Caesars, the results of confusing the Colosseum with the Capitol would have been, I should imagine, almost fatal. But turn to the 20th century for just one moment. Do you mean to tell me, Granillo, that you have never been to the Colosseum?
No. No, of course I haven't. Never. Why?
You mean you can stand there and puff out your chest and tell me that you have never been to the Colosseum?
Yes. Why? Why should you think that I had?
Merely the hawk-like sharpness of my vision.
Why? Is it a crime never to have been to the Coliseum?
No, sir. I don't expect it's a crime.
For in that case, I'm afraid I myself am guilty.
But young Ronald has been to the Coliseum anyway, sir.
Yeah, that's right.
I simply must have one more of these delicious sandwiches.
Let me.
You know, I'm coming to the conclusion that there's some ulterior motive about this chest picnic.
What do you mean, ulterior motive?
Ah, you mean it's done purely to make you spill things on your trousers, Rupert?
I think it's more than likely.
Oh, I suspect much worse than that. I think they've committed murder. And the chest is simply chock full of rotting bones. It's just the sort of thing for rotting bones, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, it is, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
My dear, you're right. I wouldn't let you see the inside of that chest for words.
I'm sure you wouldn't.
Try one of these sandwiches, Leila.
Oh, thank you. It's all very well to try and bluff me out and pretend you're willing to let me see
But
it.
my dear, that's just what I said I wouldn't do.
I have my suspicions.
Yes, but surely your murderer, having chopped up and concealed his victim in a chest, why, wouldn't ask all his friends round to come and eat off it?
Not unless he was a very stupid and very conceited murderer.
Very stupid and very conceited.
But of course he might be.
In fact, it's exactly what all criminals are.
Oh, no, I don't think so. Well, anyway, who says books?
Oh, that's a very good idea.
I have a gramophone for the very young, if they care to make use of it.
But I thought you said the next room was covered with books.
Oh, no, there's room to dance. This way, Sir Johnstone.
Oh, thank you.
Come along, the rest of you, when you want to, that is. I've dozens of records in there. You coming, Leila?
Oh, rather.
You dance,
Well, Rupert.
Well, my dear Grano, you look rather fagged out.
Oh, do I? I don't feel it.
What have you been doing with yourself?
Doing with myself? Nothing. Why do you ask?
For no reason whatever. You seem rather touchy.
Yes, I'm a bit liverish. I've been sleeping most of the afternoon, and that always puts me out for the rest of the day.
Ah, that's what I do.
You writing anything lately?
Yes, a little thing about doves, and a little thing about rain. Both good. Very good, in fact. And then, of course, I'm getting ahead with the big work.
Oh, that going well?
Yes, very. Indeed, it promises to be not only the best thing I've ever written, but the best thing I have ever read. That tune. It's rather nice, isn't it?
Mm.
So, you and Brandon leave tonight for Oxford.
That's right.
What time are you going?
We're aiming to start about 10:30.
Arriving there about when?
Oh, about 3? Or why?
Peculiar form of enjoyment, Grano, but then that's like you.
Why? Lovely moonlight night.
It's not, it's raining already.
It's not?
Yes, it is, listen.
Oh, yes. Yes, it is coming down, isn't it?
Excuse me, Grano. Reaching across
Oh,
you,
yes.
there's a book on the mantelpiece. Got it. Thank you. Oh. Joseph Conrad. Dear me. Dear me.
You're wanted!
Oh, coming. You coming along too, Rupert?
No, I'm all right. With this book from the mantelpiece, and this Colosseum ticket from your waistcoat pocket. Stalls for the 17th. Come in.
Excuse me, sir. May I clear the chest, sir?
Yes, Sabot.
Thank you, sir.
How are you getting on?
Very well, thank you, sir.
It's going to be a dirty night.
Yes, sir. It is set in now, sir.
I suppose Mr. Brandon will still be going, though.
Pardon, sir?
I suppose Mr. Brandon will still be going, though, to Oxford.
Oh, yes, sir. I suppose so, sir.
Have you any idea of the date, Sabot?
The date, sir? Yes, sir. It is the 16th, sir.
The...
No, sir. No, sir. It is not, sir. It is the 17th, sir.
Yes, I thought so. The 17th. Stalls for the 17th. Have you been getting into trouble lately, Sabot?
Trouble, sir?
Yes, trouble. I was wondering whether you had been getting into any trouble with your employers.
Me, sir? No, sir. What should make you think so, sir?
Well, I telephoned this house at 9:15 and heard the most hysterical noises.
Hysterical noises, sir?
Hysterical, Sabot, noises. Somebody had evidently lost their nerve. I was wondering whether you were the cause of it.
Me, sir? Oh, no, sir, not me, sir. I was not here till 9:05.
Then are you the one that frequents the Colosseum, Sabot?
Yes, sir.
I said, are you the one that frequents the Colosseum?
Oh, sir, I did not hear, sir. Pardon, sir. The Colosseum, sir? No, sir.
You don't?
The music hall, sir?
Yes.
No, sir, no, sir. Well, I have been there once, sir, many years ago.
But not lately?
No, sir.
Strange. Well, someone in this house frequents the Coliseum, Sabot, and Mr. Brandon and Mr. Granillo have both declared that they have never been there. Yet I found this Coliseum ticket in Mr. Granillo's waistcoat pocket. Which leaves me wondering, is it Mr. Granillo who frequents the Coliseum?
Mr. Granillo, sir?
Or is it Mr. Brandon who frequents the place?
Mr. Brandon, sir.
Hello, Mr. Brandon. What's all this about Mr. Brandon?
I was just asking the good Sabot Brandon whether Mr. Brandon would still travel to Oxford in all this rain. Wasn't I, Sabot?
Yes, sir.
Well, I hope he told you that we are. What's a little rain, anyway? Now, have we any whiskey left? Oh, yes. I'll just take all this into the others. I'll be back in a minute. That's all right, Sabot. You can go straight away now that that's cleared.
Thank you, sir.
Back in a minute.
That, Sabot, was what we call a white one.
A white one, sir? Ah, sir, yes, sir. A white one, sir. Bonsoir, monsieur.
Good night, Sabot. I wonder.
Sabot gone?
Yes, Sabot gone.
They want more cigarettes now. Where are they?
Brandon? I've just thought of something rather queer.
Something queer? What's that?
All this talk about rotting bones in chests.
Talk about rotting bones in chests, Rupert?
Yes.
What about them?
Do you remember when you were an infant, Brandon? How you used to tell me stories around the fire?
Yes, rather, I remember.
Remember your chest complex, Brandon?
My chest complex?
Yes. Whatever the story was, piratical, detective, murder, adventure, or ghost, it always contained a marvellous denouement with a bloody chest containing corpses. You had a perfect mania for it, don't you remember?
Yes, I'd forgotten that.
Why should you have remembered it?
Yes, it's quite true. I remember now. What about it, though?
Oh, nothing, just queer, that's all.
How queer, exactly?
Just queer, us all talking tonight about rotting bones in chests. It just came back to me, that's all. How's the old man getting on with his books?
Going to take the entire library away with him as far as I can see. I'm simply saying goodbye to it. Why don't you come in and watch him at it?
Yes, I think I will. And I like that tune. I say, what's the time? I want to be home fairly early tonight.
Plenty of time, come along. I'll just switch off the lights in here. Now I've left the cigarettes I was told to fetch. Go along in, Rupert, I'll be in a moment.
Oh, very well.
Come and join us. Who's there? What the devil's the matter with you? Oh, God. Tell me what's the matter?
What are you doing there in the dark? I thought it was him. I thought it was him. I thought it was Ronald.
Here, let me switch on the light. There. Now drink some of this. Be quick, man.
Why were you trying to frighten me?
I wasn't trying to frighten you. Why do you want to sneak in like that?
I wanted to see that everything was all right. Oh, I'm sorry. My nerves going. I'll be all right. Oh. Pour me another.
Oh. Very well then, but pull yourself together. I say, Grandma.
Yes?
You've got that little ticket, haven't you? You'd better give it to me and we'll destroy it right away. Now.
Ticket?
Ronald's ticket.
Ronald's ticket.
Oh, don't dither, Grano. Ronald's ticket. Ronald's Coliseum ticket.
Ronald's Coliseum ticket.
Shh. Not so loud. Yes.
I haven't got the Coliseum ticket.
Oh, don't be a fool, Grano. I gave it to you.
You didn't give it to me.
Grano.
Oh, wait. It's in my waistcoat pocket. Yes.
Grano?
You didn't...
Here, pickpocket.
You didn't give it to me.
Look again.
I never had it.
I gave it to you into your hand.
Didn't I? Never had
gave
it
into your hand.
As if you got it.
I gave it. I haven't got it. I tell you, where is it?
It's in my waistcoat pocket.
Oh, you put it in your waistcoat. You put it in your waistcoat pocket. Where is it now? Where is it now?
Yeah, Brandon, what have you lost?
My temper, Rupert. Sorry, Grano.
It's all right.
Oh, I hope I'm not interfering.
No, it's my fault. You didn't know that Grano and I behave like that, did you, Rupert? But we often have our little outbursts like this. Always about trifles, eh, Grano?
Yes.
Oh. Well, as a matter of fact, I'm here on an errand.
An errand?
Yes, I want some rope.
Rope?
Yes, why so excited? Rope. The young people in the other room, having exhausted the lyric possibilities of the gramophone, are now projecting their entire youthful elan and ingenuity into the composition of a parcel, and they want something to do it up with.
A parcel?
Yes, the old man's books.
Oh, of course.
You better see what goes into it. I'm sure he's lifting all your best. Oh, hello. Here we are. I thought it was coming.
Damnation.
Surely you're not going to Oxford in all this.
Oh, yes, we're going. I'd clear up soon. Besides, got nowhere to sleep here. Beds have all been dismantled.
Well, that needn't worry you. You can come round and put up with me if you care. I've plenty of room.
No, thank you, old boy. Think we'll try and make it.
Very well. Have it your own way.
Oh, did you hear that?
We heard it all right. We're scared out of our wits.
I know, and it's simply coming down in sheets. Surely you're not going to Oxford tonight.
Certainly we are.
But, my dear, you can't. You'll be simply swamped out, my dear. Flooded, my dear.
I hear you want some string, Leila.
Yes, so we do. Kenneth, where are the books? Oh, here we are. We're going to make a parcel, my dear. Come on.
All right.
We've got some paper. Now, where's the string?
Oh, the string's in the other room. I'll get it.
No, I'll get it. Where is it?
It's in that sort of big vase thing, you know.
Do you know the sort of big vase thing, Kenneth?
Oh, yes, I know. I'll get it.
Isn't he sweet?
Yes, he is rather a lamb.
Yes. A decided duck.
Here we are. And
Well
Sir
done.
Johnstone wants to know whether he can browse on that sort of top shelf thing. I didn't quite
Oh,
follow.
yes, I know what he means. I say, Grano, put that glass down and go in and explain to him.
Oh, fine.
Poor old man's getting into hopeless muddles.
It's all right. Oh, I'll go.
Just a little, I think.
I should say completely.
What? Grano Blotto? Yes, he is a bit.
Well, help me with this thing. There's dear. Oh, my hat!
I believe you're afraid of storms, Leila.
My dear, I am. I simply rush round in circles. It's hereditary, you know. Should see my mother.
What does she rush round in?
My dear, she doesn't. She simply hides herself in cupboards.
Really?
All entangled in the linen, my dear. If it comes on again, you'll probably all see me suddenly take a violent plunge into this chest.
I should love to see that.
Head foremost, my dear. By the way, can you get into this chest, or is it locked? Oh, put your finger on this knot for me, Kenneth. That's it.
Right.
Can you get into this chest, Brandon? Or is it locked?
What? Oh, yes. You can get into it if you want to.
Oh, well then, I'm safe.
Isn't there a lock on it, though?
Yes, there is.
Oh, my dear, you've forgotten. He's got his murdered man in here.
So he has. We'd forgotten that, hadn't we?
Well, you may have. I hadn't. Finger on the knot again, Kenneth, please.
Like that?
Yes, that's what he's been committing. Murder. Finger tighter, please. And we've caught him red-handed.
Oh, Leila, you don't know how near the mark you are.
Oh, don't I? I know exactly what's inside this chest.
What?
There's an old man. You picked him up selling papers in the street, and you did him to death for the gold fillings in his teeth. You've a lust for gold, my dear.
I see you've been following me.
It is locked, isn't it? But why a padlock? What have you got in it?
But you know, Leila, you have already explained to us what is in it.
I honestly think you ought to let us have a look. Have you got the key?
Yes, I've got the key. It's in my waistcoat pocket.
Well, hand it over and let's have a look inside.
I'm hanged if I do.
But why not, my dear? If you're really innocent, you can prove it, dear.
But how often have I to tell you, Leila, that I am not innocent? My hands are red with a crime committed less than 3 hours ago.
Oh, well, if you won't, you won't. All the same, if I had strong men about me, they'd force it from you.
I'll be your strong man.
Will you, Kenneth? All right, go and be strong.
How do I do that?
Oh, that's up to you.
All right, then. Now then, Mr. Brandon, hand it over, or it'll be the worse for you.
Said he, eyeing the other fearlessly.
Come and get it, Kenneth.
Which pocket is it in?
Top. Right.
My right or yours?
Mine.
Go on, seize it.
I'll give him 10 seconds, shall I?
That's right.
Right you are. 10 seconds.
1, 2, 3,
Won't you surrender?
No.
4, 5, 6, 7. Hooray! My dears, what will men not do for me? Slaughtering each other, of course.
Mr. Raglan! We cannot on every occasion be strong, but it is always possible to be silent. What is he doing, dear?
I thought he'd bust my arm. I say, Brandon, you don't know your own strength, you know. You gave it an absolutely foul tug.
Kenneth, I'm profoundly sorry. Really?
No, that's all right. That's what you used to do to me at school. So I'm not your strong man after all, Leila.
Never mind. You come back to the mother heart. I think he's a beast.
No, Leila. Only a desperate criminal, that's all.
How fearfully interested in crime we all seem to be tonight. Why poor Brandon can't be allowed to commit his own murders in quiet, I don't know.
Ah, it's a simple question of bringing assassins to justice.
How would you do that?
Why? By having them arrested, of course.
Oh, would that do it? I've heard of assassins being brought to the Old Bailey, but I've seldom heard of them being brought to justice. I hope you're not confusing the two.
I say, are you one of those people who don't approve of capital punishment?
I think possibly I approve of murder too much to approve of capital punishment.
Prove of murder?
My dear Leila, there are so many people that I would so willingly murder, particularly the members of my own family, and including the aunt so felicitously described by Mr. Raglan as living in Bayswater, that it would be positively disingenuous to say that I don't approve of murder. Furthermore, I have already committed murder myself.
How do you get that?
It's all simply a question of scale. You, my friends, have paradoxically a horror of murder on a small scale, a veneration for it on a large. That is the difference between what we call murder and war. One gentleman murders another in a back alleyway in London for, let us say, since you have suggested it, the gold fillings in his teeth, and all society shrieks out for revenge upon the miscreant. And they call that murder. But when the entire youth and manhood of a whole nation rises up to slaughter the entire youth and manhood of another, not even for the gold fillings in each other's teeth, then society condones and applauds the outrage and calls it war. How then can I say that I disapprove of murder, seeing that I have, in the last great war, acted on these assumptions myself? A lamentable thing, certainly, and responsible for the fact that tonight, instead of being able to fool around the gramophone with you two, a thing I should very much like to have done, I have to hobble about like an old man. But the point is that I have proved that I don't disapprove of murder. Haven't I?
No, you've done nothing of the sort. You'd be the first to be horrified by murder if it happened under your own nose.
I wonder.
Besides, you must have some moral standards.
Must I? I can't recall any.
Don't be absurd. You wouldn't hurt a fly.
Wouldn't I? I've had thousands in my time. What are your own moral standards, then, Leila?
Mine?
Oh, Leila believes in the Ten Commandments, doesn't she?
Oh, no, surely not.
Why? What's wrong with the Ten Commandments?
Nothing whatever. Indeed, I have no doubt that they were of the profoundest significance to the nomadic needs of the tribe to whom they were delivered. Their inadequacy and irrelevance for today, though, must be sufficient to condemn them. I've often attempted to discover whether it is within the range of any of us to observe even one of them. Honour thy father and mother? Of course I do. How could I do otherwise? Indeed, on the occasion of my birthday, I have never failed to send them a telegram of congratulation. Though whether this will make my days any longer in the land which has been given us must remain in doubt. But look at the others. Keep holy the Sabbath day. I don't. Take not the name of the Lord in vain. I do. Thou shalt do no murder. But I have done murder, as I have explained.
And the seventh, Rupert?
Committed. Since infancy. Thou shalt not steal. But property itself, as Proudhon has explained to us, is theft, and I am a man of property. Moreover, these are your matches.
Where did you...
Indeed, the only clause I am sincerely capable of adhering to is the little stricture concerning my neighbour's ox and my neighbour's ass. Few and far between as are my neighbours who own oxes, and fewer and farther between as are my neighbours who own asses, I honestly think I could face either type in an emergency with a pure heart. But then it might be different if I lived in a rural district.
Well, anyway, I still say that you'd never commit a murder. Your conscience wouldn't let you.
But have I a conscience?
He's quite right. And for one who hasn't a conscience, I can understand murder being an entirely engrossing adventure.
You mean a motiveless murder?
Yes.
Yes, that really does happen sometimes, doesn't it? You do get people who murder purely sort of for the fun of the thing, don't you?
What a peculiar idea of fun.
No, but I've heard of cases like that.
Certainly you have, and I for one can certainly enter into the excitement of it. The only trouble about that sort of thing is that you're bound to be found out.
Why should you be found out?
Because, my dear Brandon, that sort of murder would not be a motiveless murder at all. It would have quite a clear motive. Vanity. It would be a murder of vanity. And because of that, the criminal would be quite unable to keep from talking about it or showing it off in some fantastic way or another. The trouble with that sort of murderer is that he can't keep quiet about it. He won't hide it up. He wants to boast about it and say something, do something, and maybe something only just slightly outre, which gives him away. They have always done it, and they always will.
But then, suppose your murderer, your really ideal, brilliantly clever and competent murderer, a genius at it, I mean. Suppose he was alive to the fact that vanity was the Achilles heel to the thing, and went specially out of his way to see that he wouldn't get caught like that. I'm talking of a genius at it.
Oh, yes, but then he'd never be able to keep from talking about the very fact that he was so brilliantly clever, as you put it. So he'd give himself away just the same.
Yes, but he might be so clever.
Might. But wouldn't. Don't you think so?
Here we are. It's coming back again.
Lord, yes, I'm getting sick of this storm.
Yes, so am I. I say, you know, it's really about time I ought to be going.
Yes. Same here, really.
What an uncanny coincidence. Now you'll both be able to go together.
I say, isn't it absolutely awful?
Isn't it terrible? Are you really still going to Oxford, you two?
Certainly. The storm's probably only just around London. Besides, it's not so bad now. It's not raining, as a matter of fact, now, if you're thinking of getting off.
No, that's what I thought.
Same here.
Which is another curious
Oh,
coincidence.
do shut up.
Excuse me. Hello? Sorry, I can't hear. It's thundering this end. What? Who? Oh, yes, rather. Will you hold the line a minute? I'll get him. Right you are. Just hold on. It's for Sir Johnstone. Sir Johnstone! You're wanted on the telephone, sir.
Telephone for me?
Yes, sir, they're holding on. It's in this room.
Oh, thank you. Here we are. Excuse me, please. Hello, yes? Oh, yes. That you, dear? Yes. Yes. No, he's not here. Yes, that's right. That's quite right, dear. Huh? Oh, no, he'll be back soon, I expect. He's probably held up in the what? Yes, dear. Well, I'll be back there soon now. I'll be coming pretty well straight away. Huh? Yes, dear, yes. Right you are. Goodbye. Ronald hasn't come back.
Hasn't come back?
No.
Oh, that's the storm.
Yes, that's what it must be.
Didn't you say he'd been to the Colosseum?
Yes, that's right.
Was he expected back then, sir?
Yes, apparently he arranged to get back to tea. My wife gets so alarmed if there's any hitch.
Well, he'll probably be back by the time you get home.
Yes, I expect he will. Well, I must be off. Where did I leave my hat and coat? Oh, yes, out in the hall.
Yes, I'll go and get them.
Sir Johnstone, we've got your parcel all ready.
Oh, that is sweet of you. Thank you very much. I say, that's a wonderful parcel, isn't it?
Well, it's not bad, is it?
And I should say not. Yes, that's very convenient.
Here you are, sir.
Oh,
it's
thank you.
not raining now. But I expect you'd like a taxi, wouldn't you, sir?
Yes, I think I'd like a taxi. I'd rather like to get back. I can't think where that boy's got to.
Your hat, sir.
What? Oh, thank you. I've never known him fail when he said he'd be back.
Then he must be very filial, sir.
Yes, he is. Well, then it only remains to thank him for the most charming evening, to say nothing of the most charming company. The company being even more delightful than the books. And that's saying an enormous amount. Well, good night, young lady.
Good night.
Good night, young man.
Good night, sir.
And good night, Mr. Cadell.
Good night, sir.
And you know, Brandon, I'll have to give you something in exchange for these books.
Never, sir.
Oh, yes, you must have something back. You must have some swaps, as we used to say. You must have your swaps. Oh, yes.
Now you're forgetting them, sir.
What? Oh, thank you. Oh, this won't do, will it? Just like me. I'm getting on, you know.
Nonsense, sir.
Yeah, I'm getting old. That's my trouble. Well, good night, Brandon. Good night, Granillo.
Good night, Sir Johnstone.
Here we are.
Well,
Yes,
I'm going too.
What part do you have to go to?
Oh, I'm South Kensingtonish.
Oh, then we'll get a taxi, shall we? And I'll drop you.
Where then do you live, Mr. Raglan?
Me? Oh, I live up at Hampstead.
Oh, I see. Then it'll be quite easy to drop her.
Well, come along in, Grano.
I think we must go now.
Oh. Well, won't you stay and have another spot?
Oh, no, I don't think so. Thanks awfully. I think I ought to be going.
Yes. Same here. Really.
Well, if you're still going to Oxford tonight, I certainly wouldn't let him drive.
What do you mean?
I will not, Leila, you may be sure. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Grano.
You certainly ought.
What do you mean?
Well, are you coming?
Yes, rather.
I'm going too. Good night, Granillo.
Good night, Rupert.
Everyone got everything? Yes.
And do be careful when you're going to Oxford.
See you in the next pack. Thank you. all's well.
God, I thought he'd got onto it.
Oh, Rupert?
Yes.
Yes, so did I for a few moments. But that's what gave a piquancy to the evening. He hadn't.
You're sure he hadn't?
Quite sure. I sometimes rather wish he had. God. Rupert. Queer lad. I wonder. If he'd been with us, he wouldn't have got drunk, Grano.
I'm not drunk. I'm a little blurred, that's all. Hello, what's that?
What?
I thought I heard something.
Oh, be yourself, Grano.
I thought it was the bell. It was.
Well, what of it? I'll go and see. Let's go and have a look. It's Rupert. He's left his cigarette case behind, apparently. Have you seen it?
No.
Well, it must be here somewhere.
Did you find it?
Oh. Hello.
I thought you might give me another spot.
You're welcome, Rupert. Have a seat.
Thank you. Cigarette? I beg your pardon. I had my case in my pocket all the time.
Oh, you ass. Just a splash, Rupert.
Yes, a generous one.
Here.
Thanks. Oh, dear heaven, what unmentionable fatigue.
What?
Living. I wonder if drink is a way out. Grano seems to agree with that.
Yes, but he's not going to get any more.
You're in a horrible state tonight, Granillo. You're positively silent drunk.
Oh, I'm all right.
I say, must we have all this light?
What's wrong with the light?
Nothing is wrong with the light, Granillo, only I'm a creature of half-lights, and seeing that you have a pleasantly shaded little table lamp, can't we make use of it?
Yes, I quite agree. But I hope you're not going to settle down too heavily and make yourself too much at home, because we've got to be off before long.
Oh, that's better. Much better. I'm sad tonight, you know. And what's the time?
5:20 to 11.
5:20 to 11. Expect you're wanting to get rid of me, aren't you?
Not at all, Rupert.
I hope not. I'm full of melancholy and don't want to go home. You must bear with me. It's been such a strange evening.
A strange evening? Why?
Why strange?
I can't tell you. That's my trouble. I suppose it's the thunder. One thing and another. Thunder always upsets me. Besides, I'm always melancholy at this hour. 5:20 to 11. It's a curious hour. Did you ever read Goldsmith's Night Piece?
No, I can't say that I actually recall it.
No, you should. It's about the city at night. I shall do his night piece up to date one of these days, and I shall make it 5:20 to 11. Now. It's a wonderful hour. I am particularly susceptible to it.
Why so wonderful?
Because it is, I think, the hour when London asks why. When it wants to know what it's all about. When the tedium of activity and the folly of pleasure are equally transparent. It's the hour when jaded London theatre audiences are settling down in the darkness to the last act of plays of which they know the denouement only too well. They know that when the curtain's down, it'll be just a question of God save the King, and they'll be bundled out into a chilly, rainy night, where they'll have to fight for taxis, or rush for trains, or somehow transport themselves home to a cold supper and the prospect of another day tomorrow exactly similar to that which has passed. Ugh. It's a horrible hour. I could enlarge upon the idea indefinitely. A macabre hour, for it is not only the hour of pleasure ended, It is the hour when pleasure itself has been found wanting. There. That is what this hour means to me, and it has, moreover, been thundery. 25 to 11.
In brief, my dear Rupert, at this hour of the night, you see no earthly object in living.
I fear not. Do you?
I? Yes, of course I do. But then I'm interested in things. Why don't you get interested in things? Why don't you take up exploring, or cricket, or making love, or golf, or finance, or lecturing, or something?
Or as you suggested this evening, murder.
Or as you say, murder. Now, Rupert, we don't want to turn you out.
Oh, surely you're not going to do that. Surely you're not going to spoil my mood.
No, we're not going to spoil any of your moods, but we've got to get going at some time. And we've got a bit of packing to do and one thing and another.
No, you really mustn't spoil my mood. I shall write something tonight if I go on like this.
My dear Rupert, a poetic frame of mind will hardly be induced by the spectacle of Granillo and me filling suitcases.
Oh, I certainly think it would. I'll tell you what. I'll stay and see you off.
I'm having another drink.
That's enough of that, Grano.
Mind your own business.
Come along, Grano.
Mind your own business!
Well, it's not my business. Stay and see us off, Rupert. Doesn't look as though we'll get off with Grano in this state.
I'm perfectly sober. Why does he want to stay and see us off? That's what I want to know. Why does he want to stay and see us off?
My dear Grano, Rupert has no earthly reason in wanting to stay and see us off, and I don't know what you're talking about. There's no doing anything with you. I'm getting sick of this. Come along, Rupert. You better go and leave him with me.
Well, I've got to go then.
What do you mean, Rupert? Got to go?
Well, I thought for a moment that perhaps you wanted me to go as well.
Nothing of the sort. I was getting fed up with all this silly chatter and wanted to be alone with Grano, that's all. I don't want you to go.
You don't?
No.
All right, then I'll stay.
I said so. I said so.
Grano, you're in a queer mood tonight too, Rupert.
No, not a queer mood. An inspired mood, rather. One has inspirations, you know, extraordinary inspirations, and I have one tonight.
Oh? What's that?
I'll tell you that, perhaps. You haven't such a thing as a pin, Granillo, have you?
A what?
A pin.
Yes. Yes. What do you want it for?
I want it for my buttonhole.
Here you are.
Rupert, what are you pinning in your buttonhole?
A theatre ticket.
He's got it. He's got it.
Hold your tongue, Grano.
Oh, yes, he's got it. All right.
Hold your tongue.
He's got
Hold your
it.
tongue. Hold your
He's got it.
Rupert.
Yes?
Rupert, this is nothing to do with you. Grano and I have a certain trouble between us which concerns no one else. Will you kindly oblige us by going at once and leaving us to it?
Won't you tell me your trouble, Brandon? I might be able to help.
No, I will not tell you our trouble. Please, go. It's nothing to do with you.
No, Brandon, it may not be anything to do with me. But it may possibly be something to do with the public in general, and I'm its only representative in this room. Won't you tell me?
Are you going, or are you not?
No, Brandon, I'm not going. You see, I'm rather awkwardly situated.
You're something more than that, my friend.
Oh? How's that?
You are very dangerously situated. Very dangerously situated indeed.
Brandon, I have no protection.
You have not.
Save that of my foresight.
Foresight?
This whistle. A policeman gave it to me.
I see. And when did he give you that?
He gave it to me a few minutes ago before I came back for my cigarette case. He is now waiting for me to use it. He is waiting at the corner. It depends upon you whether I shall use it or not.
What do you want from me, Rupert?
I want two things. two truths. I want the truth about this ticket here, and the truth about that chest, or rather its contents.
I can satisfy you on both. As for the ticket, I know nothing whatever about it. As for the chest, I simply do not know what you mean.
You have succeeded in satisfying me on neither.
Rupert, I have come to the conclusion that you are hopelessly drunk and that you'd better go home.
It is possible that I am drunk, but not hopelessly, and I am not going home.
What is all this about? What is all this maudlin suspiciousness?
This is not maudlin suspiciousness, Brandon. It is well-founded. From the first moment when I telephoned this house at 9:15 and heard over the wire your friend there crying for the dark, the suspicion was there, and that suspicion has been growing ever since.
Growing ever since? Growing ever since? What do you mean? What do you suspect?
I suspect murder, Brandon. The murder of Ronald Kentley.
Oh, my poor Rupert. You don't know how you've relieved me. I imagined you'd got onto the real truth, which would have been devilish awkward. Murder. Oh dear, that's good. Hear that, Grano? He suspects us of murder. Murder. Isn't that too rich?
Is it possible that you are trying to bluff me?
Bluff you? Bluff you? Get on out of here. Blow your whistle, and bring the policeman in. Get on out. Do what you like.
Since you say I can do what I like, may I see the inside of that chest?
See the inside of that chest? See the inside of that chest? You can see the inside of 50,000 chests. Get on out.
I did not ask to see the inside of 50,000 chests, Brandon, but to see the inside of this specific chest, and I cannot do that if I have to get on out.
You're drunk.
Possibly. Nevertheless, may I look inside that chest?
Yes.
Very well. I will.
Go on then, what are you waiting for?
The key to the padlock, if you please.
Oh, the key. It's upstairs, I think.
Upstairs?
Yes, shall I go and get it?
No, don't do that. I can force it. Must I? Must I do this?
Here's your key. Now look and get what's coming to you.
Thank you.
You'll be sorry if you look in there, Cadell. You'll be sorry.
I'll take the risk. Oh. You swine. You dirty swine.
Now then, Rupert, sit down. I want to talk to you.
Poor Ronald Kentley, what had he done to you?
Sit down, Rupert. I want to talk to you.
Sit down, Brandon, what do you mean?
Sit down. For God's sake, sit down and listen. I want to explain.
Explain?
Oh, sit down. I'm at your mercy, I tell you. I'm at your mercy. Have mercy on me. I can explain. Have mercy on me. Sit down and judge me. Judge me.
Well?
Rupert, you're an enlightened man, aren't you?
I profess to be, yes.
And it is in your power to have me hanged.
So it seems.
And Granillo, too.
And Granillo, too.
Rupert.
Yes?
You remember our talk tonight about the Old Bailey and justice?
Yes, well?
And the difference between the two? You made the point.
Yes.
Yes. Well, remember that. You wouldn't be giving us up to justice. And now I want to ask you about something else you said. You do not rate life as a very precious thing, do you?
No.
Now listen, Rupert, listen. I have done this thing. I and Granillo, we've done it together. We have done it for adventure. For adventure and danger. For danger! You read Nietzsche, don't you, Rupert?
Yes.
And you know that he tells us to live dangerously.
Yes.
So we thought we would do so. That's all. We have done so. We have only done the thing. Others have talked. We have done. Do you understand?
Go on.
Listen, Rupert, listen. You're understanding. You're the one man to understand. Now, apart from all that, quite apart, even if you can't see how we look at it, you'll see that you can't give us up. 2 lives can't recall 1. It'd just be triple murder. You'd never allow that. And apart from that, too, our lives are in your hands. Your hands, man! I give them into your hands. You can't kill us. You can't kill. You're not a murderer, Rupert.
What are you?
We aren't. We aren't, I tell you. Don't tell me you're a slave to your period. You're an emancipated man. Rupert, you can't give us up. You know you can't. You can't. You can't. You can't. Can you?
Yes, I know. There's every truth in what you've said. This is a very queer, dark, and incomprehensible universe, and I understand it little. I myself have always tried to apply pure logic to it, and the application of logic can lead us into strange passes. It has done so in this case. I shall never trust logic again. You've said that I hold life cheap. You're right, I do. Your own included.
What do you mean?
What do I mean? I mean that you have taken and killed by strangulation a very harmless and helpless fellow creature of 20 years. I mean that in that chest there now lie the staring and futile remains of something that 4 hours ago lived and laughed and ran and found it good. Laughed as you could never laugh and ran as you could never run. I mean that for your cruel, scheming pleasure, you have committed a sin and a blasphemy against that very life which you now find yourselves so precious. And you've done more than this. You've not only killed him, you have rotted the lives of all those to whom he was dear. And in dragging his father round here tonight, you have played a lewd and infamous jest upon him, and a bad jest at that. And if you think, as your type of philosopher generally does, that all life is nothing but a bad jest, then you will now have the pleasure of seeing it played upon yourselves.
What are you saying? What are you going to do?
It's not what I'm going to do, Brandon. It is what society is going to do. And what will happen to you at the hands of society, I'm not in a position to tell you. But I can give you a pretty shrewd guess, I think. You're going to hang. Hang. Both of you. Hang.
But this is absurd. I've spoken with His Royal Highness nearly every day for the past 12 months. He's often said that I've almost become one of the family, and that's what I feel. I've come to adore those children. It breaks my heart to leave them. And now, on my last day, you're telling me I can't see him. You're asking me to pack up my tent and leave like a thief in the night.
My dear lady,
Baron, I will not do it. I wish to see the prince. And it's not only to make my farewell in a civilized fashion. I have something I must say to him.
Say it to me, Miss Froy. I can assure you I'll pass it on to His Royal Highness the moment he returns to the palace. That won't be for some days,
This
but
isn't something I wish to entrust to a third party. Where exactly has he gone?
Miss Froy, it grieves me to say so, but I must point out that your position here has somewhat changed in the last few days. As governess to the royal children, you did enjoy the prince's confidence.
You mean
now,
because I'm leaving?
I mean because you're proposing to come back.
I don't quite understand.
Miss Froy, it cannot have escaped your attention that the prince is beset by enemies.
You mean Herr Hitler and those dreadful Nazis?
I mean closer to home. I mean the people who are plotting to overthrow the government and the royal family and substitute some form of so-called democracy.
Really, Baron, you mustn't talk to me about politics. I know nothing at all about them.
That is your only saving grace.
What on earth do you mean?
I mean, dear lady, that if for 1 second I believed you had a political motive for what you're proposing to do, you wouldn't be traveling back to England this afternoon, but standing trial.
Baron Hofmeyer.
Oh, yes, Miss Froy. Am I mistaken, or have you been in communication with a certain Jan Pasterek?
But that's exactly what I want to talk to His Royal Highness about. Mr. and Mrs. Pasterek have asked me to come back next year as governess to their 4 children, 3 girls and a lovely little boy. Enchanting. And I do so love your country, Baron. Surely His Royal Highness would have no objection to my returning to Zabrovnia to put
Miss Froy, you are either very stupid, and I don't believe you're that, or incredibly naive. Aren't you aware that Jan Pasterek is the leader of the Social Democratic Party? That he is the man behind these plots?
Oh, no. Oh, Baron Hofmeyer, surely not.
Yes, Miss Froy. You must take my word for it. And now, I really must ask you to leave. At once, please, Miss Froy.
Oh, but Baron, this makes it all the more vital that I speak with the Prince. I must explain. I simply must. Where is he?
Miss Froy, as I've been trying to tell you, His Royal Highness has left the capital. He is not here, and he won't be back for at least 3 days. By that time, I trust you will be safely home in England, and your stay with us will... Miss Froy, if you don't mind...
But that is the Prince. That's the Prince's voice.
Hofmeyer, giddy as a Dobrink. Miss Froy.
Your Royal Highness, I'm so glad to see you.
My dear Miss Froy.
Baron Hofmeyer here was trying to tell me you weren't in the palace, but I couldn't leave without saying a proper goodbye. You've all been so good to me.
But we are devastated to see you leave. The children will miss you terribly. We all will.
You're so kind. There is one other thing, Your Royal Highness. I've been given the opportunity of returning to Zabrovnia.
My dear Miss Froy, word had reached me, and you cannot imagine how it grieved me to learn that you'd been misled by the agitator Pasterek. He's so very plausible. But I'm quite sure you wouldn't consider distressing me by even thinking of serving in his household.
Of course not, sir, if you don't wish it.
And now, dear Miss Froy, farewell. I wish you a safe journey home.
The Lady Vanishes, dramatised for radio by Neville Teller from the novel The Wheel Spins by Ethel Lena White. With Renee Asherson as Miss Froy, Jenny Funnell as Iris Carr, Mark Peyton as Maximilian Hare, and Mark Tandy as Professor Wilberforce. The Lady Vanishes.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Is there anyone English in this restaurant car? Anyone?
Can I be of help?
Oh, thank God. I'm sure there's some horrible mistake and I can't speak a word of this wretched language.
Don't worry, I speak the lingo. What's the trouble?
May I offer my services as interpreter?
Oh, he's no good. He only knows grammar. I can swear in the vernacular, and we may need a spot of profanity. Now then, why don't you sit down and tell us what's happened?
Oh, thank you. And thank heaven for someone who can understand what I'm saying.
Would you like something to drink? Coffee, fruit juice?
Oh, nothing, thank you. Oh, God. Where shall I begin? Listen. An Englishwoman has disappeared from the train. Oh, you must believe me. She's a real person. But the Baroness says that... Oh, dear.
You're in a terrible state, Miss... What is your name?
I'm Iris Carr.
My name's Hare. Much too long for you to remember. Better call me Maximilian. Though I will answer to Max.
My name's Wilberforce.
I call him the Prof. He's the genuine article, incidentally. Holds the chair of Slavonic and East European Studies somewhere. I forget quite where.
Cambridge University.
Oh, there now. I had an idea it was somewhere I should have remembered.
Now, Miss Carr, perhaps you could give us a more coherent account of what has happened.
I really don't know where to begin.
There's some very good advice in Alice in Wonderland. Begin at the beginning.
Wonderland. That's just it. I feel as though I've somehow slipped out of the real world. Or been pushed.
Miss Carr, really? If you can't tell us what's happened, how on earth can we help you? Now, please, do pull yourself together. What are you doing in Zabrovnia in the first place?
I've been on holiday with some friends. They went back to England at the weekend. I decided to stay on for the few days left of the season.
On your own?
In a way. I mean, there were some English people in the hotel, but they were only nodding acquaintances. I don't think they approved of my crowd. Or of me, come to that. Not surprising, really. They're not precisely my type.
I must say, I'm looking forward to seeing my garden again.
Our garden, Evelyn, dear. I do have an equal share in the property. As a matter of fact, I do most of the gardening.
Oh, you're always so literal, Rose. You must forgive my sister, Vicar. She gives the impression we're always at each other's throats. Nothing could be further from the truth.
I'm sure.
This landscape is quite spectacular, of course, but Suffolk is so beautiful at this time of year.
Well, what I'm looking forward to is sitting in a really comfortable chair again. This thing's agony. Oh, here come the bridal pair. Handsome couple.
I wonder who they really are, Vicar. That man's face, I know I've seen it somewhere, and not attached to the name Todhunter either.
Oh, my sister's off again, Mr. Barnes. Perhaps she's a film star, Rose dear.
Oh, do you think so? How exciting. I love the pictures. Do you go often, Miss Floodporter?
As often as she can, Mrs. Barnes.
No, he's not a film star. I'd certainly recognise someone I'd seen in the cinema. But there's some mystery about those two. I feel it.
So do I. I wonder, do you think they're really married?
Perhaps they're wondering the same about you, Edna, my dear. Isn't it simpler to believe that we're all what we say we are? Even parsons and their wives? I think I'll stroll down to the village to say goodbye to my friends. See you all later.
How can he talk to them when he doesn't know the language?
Oh, he makes them understand. Sympathy, you know, and common humanity. Hello, my dear. Left all alone?
Yes, by choice.
Aren't you lonely?
Not at all. I'm enjoying my own company.
Are you travelling back to England on Tuesday?
That's right.
It's a long journey, and they usually try to pack too many passengers into the last good train of the season. Would you like to join Mr. Barnes and me? We could travel together.
Thank you, but I really would prefer to be on my own.
Just as you wish, my dear. I hope you have a pleasant journey.
Wait! Oh, do wait!
Here, miss. This carriage. Quick, quick.
Is there a seat in this compartment? I'm sure we can squeeze you in, my dear. Oh, come and sit next to me. The train's very full, isn't it? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Up there, Porter.
Excusez, madame.
Daj pazi mulesnes predny.
Chciałbym se wasze wysości.
Hotovan.
Odmak wasze wysości, odmak.
Thank you, Porter. Here, will this do?
Thank you, miss. Very good. Goodbye, miss.
Hotovan mullet.
Come and sit down, my dear. It may be a bit of a squash, but it's better than standing. Thank you. I'm afraid the porter upset that lady in the corner seat. She's rather formidable, isn't she? She's the Baroness von Zoenstein, and she called him an oaf twice. Good heavens! Can you speak the language? Oh, quite a bit. Do you know Zabrovnia well? Quite well. I've been living here en famille for the past year. In fact, the Baroness is a member of the family. It's not wise to mention names, but I was governess to the highest in the place. I wonder if she speaks English. Excuse me, madam. Do you happen to speak English? Apparently not, though I bet she does. But I
don't think anyone else in this compartment does.
I think you're right. You'll just have to put up with me until we reach Trieste. What do you say to a nice cup of tea? Shall we make our way to the restaurant car?
What a good idea. Excuse me. Oh, sorry.
It's this way, I think, my dear. Just glance into the next compartment as we go by, and I'll tell you something.
As soon as I did so, I regretted it. What I saw was horrifying. A figure, the head, eyes and forehead bandaged, and the features concealed by a crisscross of plaster strips, lay stretched on the length of one seat covered with rugs. I tried to imagine what sort of mutilation a face must suffer to be bandaged like that, and I shuddered. A nun sat by the figure, and a man with a black spade beard was talking to her.
You recognise that man, my dear?
Didn't he come into our compartment and speak to the Baroness?
Yes, he did. And that's how I know about this. He's a doctor. His patient's a woman who's been terribly injured in a car accident. The doctor's rushing her to a hospital in the north of the country for a tricky operation. This train's the fastest way of getting her there.
That nun looks something less than spiritual.
Oh, she doesn't spend her time on her knees. She's a fully trained nursing sister. Come on, my dear. Excuse me. Excuse me, please.
Sorry.
I beg your pardon.
No, my fault entirely. It's all these people. I was just looking out to see if our tea was coming. I ordered it from an attendant.
You're English. This is my lucky day. I've been starved of English company for 12 months.
And now you're on your way home?
It's almost too good to be true. Look, we're just off to the restaurant car. Shall I send a waiter with your tea?
Oh, that would be really kind. My husband's such a wretched traveller. He's almost prostrated. Oh, hello, Miss Carr. I hope you found a seat.
Only just.
We all got on. The Todd Hunters are on their own, of course, but the Miss Flood Porters are next door to us. They're having tea at the moment.
And that's what we should be doing. Goodbye, and I won't forget the waiter. Isn't all this fun? Milk?
Please. Why do you like it?
It's travel. We're moving. And best of all, we're on our way back home. Now, my dear, I noticed that English lady called you Miss Carr. But what's your Christian name?
Iris.
How lovely. I'm afraid Winifred pales into insignificance beside the thought of that lovely flower. I'm Winifred Froy.
It seems rather late in the day to say how do you do.
Yes, I feel we're quite old friends.
Me too, even though I know nothing about you.
Oh, there's not much to know. I've been doing a year as governess to the children of... No, I'd better not say. But there's no one more important in Zabrovnia. You can have no idea of the power of my late employer. What he says goes.
Isn't that rather, well, degrading?
I suppose it is. But that's how things are in this part of the world. After a time, one becomes quite spineless. And that's not English, Iris, is it? Oh, it'll be lovely to be home. Father and Mother are as excited as children.
You still have your parents?
Oh, yes. A little frail, but still going strong. And so is Sock.
Sock?
Short for Socrates. He's an old English sheepdog. Mother says she's sure he knows I'm coming home. The old duffer trots off to meet every train and then comes back with his tail down, the picture of depression. The parents can't wait for his reaction when I do arrive.
I'd love to see him.
Those two ladies over there. I'm sure they're English.
Where? Oh, yes, the Flood Porters. They were at our hotel. They're sisters. Well, I suppose we'd better be getting back. though I can't say I relish spending the next few hours in the company of that appalling grande dame.
The Baroness. A bit overwhelming, perhaps, but quite kind-hearted beneath it all, and very generous.
Really?
Oh, yes. There was some muddle about my place on the train. I'd booked second class, but there wasn't a single seat left. Do you know, the Baroness paid the difference, so that I could travel first class in her carriage.
Did she?
She said she was sure my late employer would have wished it. Really kind. Well, shall we make a move?
Excuse me. Please. Excuse me.
Excuse me. Do have a peek in this compartment. There's a glorious couple, just like film stars come to life.
Yes, they were staying at our hotel too. Their name's Todhunter, and they don't like company.
Of course not, when they're so in love. Oh dear, he's looking daggers at me.
Yes, he'll certainly know you again. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, look, I wonder how that poor patient is doing. I do hope they get her to hospital in time.
Oh, and here we are. Oh dear, there's that Baroness to face again.
I tell you what, don't let's sit mum. Even if I am under an obligation to her, I'm going to remember we're English. We won't be put down.
That's the spirit. Though I'm not sure I'll be up to it, Miss Froy. My head's been aching like mad for hours.
You poor thing. I thought you were looking a little poorly.
I think I must have had too much sun yesterday.
Then come and sit down. You'd better not have dinner in the restaurant car. I tell you what, I'll bring you something later. Now, why don't you get a little nap? You'll feel much better when you wake.
I closed my eyes. I could still hear Miss Froy fluttering about me, but the carriage was so warm that I soon became drowsy, and at last I dozed off. I awoke suddenly. I don't know why. My head was still throbbing. I turned it to ease the pain. Miss Froy wasn't beside me. To be honest, I was rather glad. I didn't feel up to making conversation. None of the other passengers took the slightest notice of me. The Baroness slept in her corner. The others sat silent. A pretty girl of about 20, and a family party consisting of 2 large parents and a small daughter. I looked at them for a moment or two, until my lids drooped again, and once more I fell asleep. The next time I woke, it was pretty dark. Miss Froy was still not beside me. Not long ago I'd been pleased by her absence. Now I felt lonely, eager to see her again. Where was she? It was at that moment I happened to look up at the rack. Miss Froy's suitcase was no longer there.
Well, obviously she'd moved to another compartment.
Didn't you say there'd been some mix-up with her seat? Perhaps it had become free after all.
I thought that, but then I remembered that the Baroness had actually paid the difference for her to travel first.
Oh, that's right.
Besides, Miss Froy would never have left me without a word of explanation. And she'd promised to bring me dinner. No, she'd never just slip out of the compartment like that.
Well, I take it you questioned your fellow passengers.
I tried. I just couldn't make anyone understand. I couldn't reach them. The Baroness was still sleeping in her corner, and I suddenly felt desperate. I went over to her and shook her arm. The others gasped. You'd have thought I was committing sacrilege. Wake up.
Madame.
Wake up, please.
Chi to the latte. Oh, it is you. What is it you require?
Where is Miss Froy?
Miss Froy? I know nobody who has that name.
She sat over there, beside me.
You make a mistake. No English lady has sat there ever.
You are the Baroness von Zoenstahlen.
That is my name?
Well, it was Miss Froy who told me so. I talked to her, and we went and had tea together. Oh, you must remember.
There is nothing to remember. How you came by my name is a matter of indifference. But I tell you this. There has been no English lady here in this carriage, never at any time, except you.
You are the only English lady here.
You're saying the Baroness denied that this Miss Froy was ever in the compartment?
Precisely. I was literally dumbfounded. I couldn't say a word. I simply couldn't understand why she should say such a thing.
So you came looking for help and ran into us two?
Not at once. I was certain she was somewhere on the train. So I went to find her.
Bully for you.
It didn't do much good. The corridor's so jam-packed that getting through is like swimming in a sea of treacle. All I could see was a blur of faces, and my head was giving me hell. Still is, come to that.
Poor you.
After a bit, I reached the compartment with that vicar, Barnes, I think his name is, and his wife. He looked dreadful.
Why, it's Miss Carr.
I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for my friend.
Oh, yes?
You remember her? She sent the waiter with your tea.
It was very kind of her. Will you give her my special thanks?
When I find her, she left the compartment some time ago, and she hasn't returned.
Well, she can't have left the train, so she's bound to be back soon.
Well, can I find her for you?
Certainly not, Kenneth. Don't be absurd. You're in no fit state to go traipsing round the train. Just look at you. In any case, you don't know what she looks like.
Oh, that's true. Oh, isn't it humiliating to be such a wretched traveller? I'm sorry, my dear. I'd be more hindrance than help.
So I didn't pursue it. I then went down the complete length of the train, and then came back here to the restaurant car to see if anyone could help me.
Of course, we'll help you, won't we, Prof?
Well, the first step is clearly to interview the other passengers in your compartment. If the lady hasn't returned by the time we've done that, I may consider calling the guard and asking for an official examination of the train.
Oh, thank you, Professor Wilberforce. You can't imagine what a relief
Truth
it is to
is, this is his best chance in years to practice the lingo. Well, what are we waiting for? Lead the way, Miss Carr.
Miss Carr, you appear to have made an extraordinary mistake. I've cross-questioned everyone except the little girl.
Who wouldn't talk to him?
And I can tell you that no one in that carriage knows anything about the English lady you say is missing.
But that's absolutely impossible. You see,
Nor does Dr. Trownitz here. You know he's travelling with his patient in the next compartment. That's so, isn't it, Doctor?
I'm afraid it is. The questions and the answers were most explicit.
So what are you saying? That I invented Miss Froy?
I hardly know what to think.
Then I'll tell you. They're all lying. Every one of them.
I say, steady on. The man, the woman, that pretty young thing, and the rock of the aristocracy in black bombazine, all of them?
The man is a banker, really quite eminent. The Baroness's own, as a matter of fact. She vouches for him and for his wife. The young lady is the daughter of the agent for the whole Johnstone estate. And as for the Baroness herself...
I don't care what they told you, Professor, or what the Baroness said. All I know is that I still owe Miss Froy for my tea. She paid for me.
Well, we can soon check up on that. If you had tea together, the waiter might remember her. Which one was it?
I don't know. My head was throbbing. I didn't take any notice.
I'd like to know what Miss Froy looks like. Describe her.
Oh, dear. I can't really tell you very much. She's middle-aged, ordinary, just ordinary.
Tall or short? Fat or thin? Fair or dark?
Medium. She had blue eyes.
A totally unmemorable woman, with blue eyes.
What was she wearing?
Tweed. Oatmeal flecked with brown. Patch pockets. A shirt blouse stitched with blue. And a small blue handkerchief in the breast pocket. Oh, and she was wearing a hat with a funny bright blue feather in it.
Stop. Now that you've remembered the hat, make a special effort and put a face under it.
Oh, it's no good. You see, I had such a frantic headache. I believe I had too much sun yesterday.
Ah, my dear young lady, that blow of the sun, it explains all. A delirium is not uncommon. The mind plays tricks. So, you see someone who is not there. You even think you talk to her. After you go to sleep. When you wake, you are better, so you see Miss Froy no more. Believe me, she is nothing but a delirium, a dream.
I think we may accept that as final. If I'd known the circumstances, I shouldn't have intervened. I hope you'll soon feel better, Miss Carr.
I may have a headache, but I've not gone gaga. Just a moment. I've thought of something. Baroness von Zernstahlen.
I've already admitted to that name.
You have denied that Miss Froy was ever in this carriage, and everyone else here backs you up.
They say it because it is so. Why you think that I should invent this or that they should, I cannot imagine.
Nor can I. Miss Froy told me that you had been very kind to her.
Really? In what way?
She said there had been some problem about her seat, and that you paid the excess fare for her to travel in here.
How charming of me. I'm gratified to hear of my generosity. Unfortunately, I know nothing of it. But the ticket collector should be able to refresh my memory.
Well, that's easy enough to arrange. There he is at the end of the corridor. I'll fetch him. Pardon me.
This should really settle the matter, Miss Carr.
Here he is.
You have a problem? Gentlemen? Ladies?
This lady is the Baroness von Zernstahlen. Did she pay you the extra fare to allow a second-class passenger to sit in this carriage?
Which second-class passenger?
An English lady, middle-aged. She wore a hat with a feather.
Where is she? Let me see her ticket.
That's just the problem. She's vanished.
I recall no such lady, madame. And I have upgraded nobody to first class.
I believe that concludes the matter. Miss Carr, at your behest, I have conducted a series of pointless and rather embarrassing interviews. I now propose to retire to my compartment. I sincerely hope that you won't expose us and yourself to any further ridicule.
Very well, Professor. Then I've only one course open to me. I shall have to prove to you that Miss Froy really does exist.
But how?
I'll start by speaking to the people I was with at the hotel. They all saw her.
All right. I'll come with you. Let's see if any of them can remember your Miss Froy, shall we?
Who's the girl looking in?
One of the mob from the hotel.
Help.
Mr. Todhunter, my name's Iris Carr. You remember me from the hotel, I'm sure. An English woman called Miss Froy has disappeared from the train. You'll help me find her, won't you?
I'd be delighted to cooperate with you, but who is Miss Froy?
She's middle-aged, ordinary. She peeped in at your window as we went by, and you jumped up and pulled down the blind.
I'm sorry, but I've no recollection of any such occurrence.
But you saw her. Your wife called your attention to her. You were both annoyed.
Miss Carr, we aren't a peep show, and no one looked in. Do you mind if you shut the door? I want to rest before dinner.
I'm sorry, Miss Carr, but I can't recall your companion. Someone may have been with you at the table, but I wasn't wearing my glasses.
Neither was I, so I'm afraid we shan't be able to help you. It would be against our principles to identify someone we weren't sure of.
How about not raising a finger to help an Englishwoman in danger? What price your principles on that?
Danger? What could possibly happen to her on a crowded train?
Danger? Who's in danger? Oh, hello, Mrs. Barnes. I'm still trying to find my friend, Miss Froy. You remember, the lady who ordered your tea for you? I suppose you never saw her.
The little lady in tweed, with a blue feather in her hat. Of course I remember her. We were so grateful for the tea.
Oh, Mrs. Barnes. Are you convinced now, Professor?
I'm sorry to have doubted your word, Miss Carr, but we had to have some corroborative evidence that Miss Froy actually exists.
And now we have it. Next question. What on earth's happened to the old dear?
And why did those foreigners all lie about her?
We'll have to play Spot the Lady. For my money, she's disguised as the doctor. That beard looks totally phony to me. Why not give it a tug next time he passes?
Max, do take this seriously, please. She is still missing.
Sorry, you're right.
When are we due at Trieste?
Just before 11, I think. But the guard was telling me we have an unscheduled stop this side of the border at about 10:30, to let the doctor and his patient off.
And it's now nearly 6:30. Look, we mustn't waste any more time. We must find her. I know it sounds sloppy, but her people, they're old and a bit frail. They're expecting her home, counting the hours. And the fool of a dog meets every train. And... Oh, Lord. Sorry.
Take it easy, Iris. You're not on your own. Oh, watch out. Here comes Blackbeard.
Pardon me, but I thought you would wish to hear. Your friend has returned to the carriage.
Miss Froy? Really? Oh, how marvellous. Where was she?
All the time so near. In the next carriage, talking with my nurses.
The one place I didn't look. Of course she'd want to know how your patient was getting on. That's Miss Froy to a T. Well, come on. What are we waiting for?
You too, Prof. At last we can meet the elusive Miss Froy.
Мечтате, дайте да пройдем.
Beg your pardon.
Дайте да пройдем.
Sorry. Mind. Excuse me. I beg your pardon. If I could... Thank you.
Ah, your carriage at last, Miss Carr. Allow me. And here she is.
But that's not Miss Froy.
What do you mean?
She's wearing her clothes, her hat, but that woman's an imposter. You aren't Miss Froy.
No, I have not heard that name before. I am Frau Kummer.
As I told you, there has been no English lady in this compartment except yourself. Of course, had you inquired about Frau Kummer?
Frau Kummer? I've never heard the name before.
But I introduced myself before we went to have tea together.
That's a lie. I've never seen you before in my life. You're a total stranger. Professor Wilberforce, this is not Miss Froy.
The lady herself has told us that.
But she's wearing her clothes. Why? What's become of Miss Froy?
A lady only you seem to have met.
It's a conspiracy of some sort. They're all in it.
Miss Carr.
Oh, let me think. Let me think. Mrs. Barnes, she spoke to Miss Froy. Oh, fetch her, Max, please.
Kenneth, my dear, you're looking so ill. Excuse me, please, I'm sorry. I'm really worried about you. Should you be doing this? Oh, if only I could get you home.
Well, I'll be all right, Edna. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Pardon me. I'm sorry. I do apologize. Miss Carr. I understand you want my wife to identify a friend of yours?
Thank you both so much for coming.
Kenneth, let me get you back to the compartment. You ought to be lying down.
Here we are. Oh, give us some room, please. Now, Mrs. Barnes, please look very carefully. Is this the lady who arranged for your tea to be sent?
Let me see. Yes, of course it is.
What happened?
You fainted, Iris. Nothing serious. So we brought you along to our bunny hatch. But all this is getting on top of you, you know.
Max, I want to talk to you. There is a Miss Froy. You must believe me. The trouble is, my head feels like a three-ring circus. I can't even quite remember what I told you and the professor earlier on. I'd like to go over the whole thing with you. What about it?
Good idea. One thing has struck me. From what you said, I'm pretty sure your Miss Froy was employed by the royal family. Crown Prince Frederick and his wife.
That makes sense.
You know the place was in a turmoil just before we left.
Was it?
Oh, yes. Some politico called Jan Pastrecht was supposed to be threatening a sort of armed uprising. But who knows? It's all plot and counterplot in these mid-European states. I'd have thought they had enough on their hands fending off a Nazi takeover. Word is Herr Hitler has his beady eye on Zabrovnia.
Oh, never mind all that. The important thing is you've worked out who Miss Froy's employer was from things she told me. Things I passed on.
But, Iris, that proves nothing. It could all apply equally well to Frau Kummer. No. let's take a cold, hard look at the situation.
Go on.
You're suggesting that the Baroness has got rid of Miss Froy, never mind why or how, and that the passengers and the ticket collector, being local people, are backing her up. Well, knowing this part of the world, I think they would.
But it all seems such a clumsy sort of plot. I mean, dressing someone up as Miss Froy.
But that needn't have been part of the original plot at all.
You mean I upset their apple cart, barging into the carriage at the last minute?
Exactly. When you first made a fuss about Miss Froy, they'd all denied her existence. But when you said other English people had seen her, they had to produce someone.
Oh, Max, you're such a comfort. You see, you believe in Miss Froy too.
I'm not saying that, but I do promise to believe in you.
Max.
So, let's assume a plot inspired by the All-Highest in Zabrovnia and carried out by his relative, the Baroness von Zoenstahlen.
In collaboration with that doctor. I don't trust that man.
We'll go along with your feminine intuition, in cahoots with the doctor. Let's say they're both under orders to bump off Miss Froy. That instantly discredits all the foreign evidence.
You really are rather marvellous.
Hang on to the bouquets. Because against all that, we have some really insuperable obstacles. To start with, 6 eminently respectable English people have failed to corroborate Miss Froy's existence. Why?
That I don't know. I honestly don't know.
And then, why should a harmless English governess be the object of an elaborate plot by the head of state of Zabrovnia?
It seems unbelievable. Impossible.
So where does that leave us? No one, foreign or English, backs up your story. On the other hand, Mrs. Barnes positively identifies this Frau Kummer as the woman you were with on the way to tea. On top of that, you did suffer mild sunstroke yesterday, and you've been feeling the effects all day.
Oh dear. So the doctor could be right. It's the sunstroke. I went to tea with that Kummer woman and later dreamt about Miss Froy.
Well, that's one logical explanation.
All right, Max. I give in. Let's forget about Miss Froy.
All alone, Miss Carr?
Yes, they've all gone to dinner. First sitting.
I'm pleased to find you alone, actually. You know, Miss Carr, Hare and I are both a bit worried about you.
There's no need.
No, but there is. You've suffered sunstroke.
I've more or less
I was
given up.
discussing it with Dr. Trownitz just now, and he came up with an admirable suggestion.
What suggestion?
As you know, the doctor's taking his patient to a hospital in the north of the country. He knows of an excellent nursing home very close by. He'll gladly arrange for you to spend the night there at no charge. You could have a good night's sleep and continue your journey tomorrow.
Most definitely not.
But my dear Miss Carr...
Professor Wilberforce, nothing on earth would induce me to go anywhere with that man. There really is nothing more to be said.
As you wish, Miss Carr. I was merely trying to be helpful.
Thank God we can drop this Todd Hunter farce before too long. It can't happen too soon for me.
I don't know what you're worried about. There's not much chance of his finding out.
But there is some. Is that what you're saying?
I'd say we were reasonably secure. Of course, one never knows what can happen. I've handled some very odd divorce cases in my time.
Divorce?
It was perhaps unfortunate there were English visitors at our hotel.
Oh.
And you are entirely too beautiful to remain anonymous for long.
You told me there was no risk. Oh, what a fool I've been.
I don't know why you're suddenly so anxious to get back to your husband.
Let's be honest about this, shall we? We're both in it for what we can get, and he can give me more than you can. If this ever gets out...
So it's lucky I was thinking ahead when that girl asked about her friend who's disappeared.
What do you mean?
If I hadn't denied all knowledge of her, I'd have had to make a statement at Trieste. Can't you see the headlines? English woman lost on Continental Express. Mr. Todd Hunter, pictured here. An Englishman travelling on the same train. I'd have been identified in 24 hours flat. And so would you, my sweet.
Oh.
I couldn't touch a thing. I'll eat when we get to Trieste.
But that's not for another hour. More if we're delayed getting the doctor's patient off the train. We'll be stopping before too long.
Max, tell me, could you write a detective story?
Can't spell, but I solved them like a shot.
Then let's have a demonstration. You've proved Miss Froy doesn't exist. Now, humour me. Pretend she does. Work out what might have happened to her.
You don't give up, I'll say that for you. Let me think. OK, here goes. The strange disappearance of Miss Froy. Your Miss Froy is a spy who's got some information she's sneaking out of the country. So she's got to be bumped off. What better way than on a railway journey? People stop off, miss connections. By the time anyone got really concerned, the trail would be stone cold.
So is the whole train in the plot?
Oh no, just the Baroness, the Doctor and the nuns. But there's also the conspiracy of silence, which covers the passengers and the ticket collector. They're all Zabrovnians, and they'd all go along with the Baroness.
What about getting Miss Froy into the Baroness's compartment in the first place?
Oh, yes. Dirty work at the crossroads over Miss Froy's seat. They had to be sure she'd be with the Baroness and next door to the Doctor.
But what's happened to her?
Aha, I'll tell you. At this very moment, Miss Froy is lying flat out in the next compartment, tightly bound in bandages and covered with rugs.
Oh, my God! How? When?
It happened when you obligingly dropped off to sleep. Enter the Doctor. He asks Miss Froy if she would render some slight service to his patient. She went.
She would? I know she would.
Directly she enters, down comes the blind, and the three of them set on her.
Three?
Of course. The patient's one of them. One holds her, the other stops her shouting, and the Doctor gives her a knockout injection.
Yes! Yes! I can see it! It could have happened.
They tie her up, gag her, and lay her out in the place of the false patient. But by now, you've unearthed some English people who'll remember Miss Froy. So down comes the blind again, as the second nun, the one who posed as the patient, dresses herself in Miss Froy's clothes.
Oh, Lord! What'll they do to her?
When we make our unscheduled stop in about 20 minutes from now, she'll be put into an ambulance, taken away and disposed of.
You're right. I know you're right. It's the only logical explanation.
Oh, Iris, for heaven's sake. I made it all up. It's a fantasy. I invented it.
Oh, I don't mean about Miss Froy being a spy. That's all poppycock. But it's what they've done with her, I'm sure of it. She's lying next door, doped up to the eyebrows, and wrapped round in bandages like an Egyptian mummy. Come on. We've got to find the Professor. We must rescue her before she's taken off the train.
Ah, Miss Carr. Herr?
Come to join the Doctor and me for dinner.
The soup's very good.
Professor, I know where Miss Froy is.
Oh, dear. Miss Froy again. I had hoped we'd disposed of the mythical Miss Froy.
Do you still have your headache, Miss Carr?
Professor, Miss Froy is far from mythical, but she'll certainly be disposed of in little more than 15 minutes unless we do something.
What exactly do you mean, Miss Carr?
I'm afraid this is all my fault, Prof. I dreamt up a little fairy tale, and Iris has fastened onto it.
This is no fairy tale, believe me. Professor, you must take it seriously. As for you, Dr. Trownitz, I don't have to tell you to take it seriously, because you're in this game in deadly earnest.
My dear Miss Carr.
What precisely are you alleging?
Just this. That the doctor's patient, all conveniently wrapped in bandages from head to toe, is no accident victim but Miss Froy. That's why she's disappeared. And that's why they're going to remove her from the train before we reach the border.
But this is totally absurd, Miss Carr. My patient joined the train before you did.
Someone wrapped in bandages on a stretcher did. You enticed Miss Froy into that carriage while I was asleep, and you substituted her for your accomplice.
And where, if I may inquire, is the original patient?
That's obvious, Professor. Frau Kummer, now dressed in Miss Froy's clothes.
I've never heard of such a farrago of nonsense. Who on earth do you suppose dreamed up such a conspiracy? And why?
I think I know who. Why, I don't know. But believe me, Professor, Miss Froy, a dear, gentle creature who's never harmed a soul in her life, will be abducted from this train and probably killed, unless we do something about it. Oh, you must take this seriously. There's so little time.
Perhaps we'd better come at once to see my patient. I'm sorry to disturb your dinner, Professor, but the young lady is in a highly emotional state. It may be best to try to reassure her.
Oh, very well.
Now, Miss Carr, look carefully at the patient's legs. Can you identify these shoes?
You know I can't. You might have better luck if you removed that mask of bandage and showed us her face.
I see you don't understand. Beneath these bandages there is no face, only lumps of raw flesh. We shall try to rebuild a face. Let us hope we're successful. The eyes, we must await the oculist verdict. Till then, we dare not expose them to even a flicker of light. It may be total blindness. One eye is only pulp. You look unwell, Miss Carr.
I don't believe you. It's all lies.
In that case, Miss Carr, why not tear off a strip of plaster and look under the pad of bandages? But if you do, I warn you that bleeding will start again and the patient will die from shock almost immediately. You will be charged with murder. But since you're so sure of the face under these bandages, take hold of this plaster. Tear it off.
Iris, don't.
Miss Froy. Miss Froy, can you hear me? If you can hear me, Miss Froy, hold up your hand. Miss Froy, hold up your hand. Max, look. Oh, look, that finger, she's moving.
But that's no proof it's Miss Froy. It could be anybody. For heaven's sake, Iris, don't touch those plasters. You can't know it's her. Iris!
Miss Carr!
Miss Froy! Oh, Miss Froy! Dear, dear Miss Froy!
I don't know what's behind all this, Dr. Trownitz, but you have attempted to abduct a citizen of the United Kingdom. If you make any attempt to prevent us from leaving the compartment with this lady, I shall instantly summon help.
Bravo, Prof.
What's more, if you and your friends are on this train when we reach Trieste, I shall immediately contact the authorities and make quite certain they detain you.
My dear Professor, I can assure you that neither the Baroness nor I have any intention of leaving Zabrovnia. In fact, a car is awaiting our party at the moment by the side of the railway track. If you will excuse me...
Thank heaven their party will be one fewer than they anticipated.
I've more than heaven to thank for that, my dear. If it hadn't been for you...
This is Victoria. The train arriving at platform 5 is the boat train from Dover. The Continental Express is arriving at platform 5.
Oh, excuse me, are you Miss Froy?
Yes. Yes, I am.
You don't know me, Miss Froy. My name's Ian Breverton. I'm, from the Foreign Office.
The Foreign Office? Is it my passport? Is there something...
Is there some trouble? Can I help?
Are you travelling with this lady?
In a manner of speaking. My name's Max Hare. This is Iris Carr.
Hello.
We've heard from our consul in Trieste. I know you've all had a difficult journey.
You could say that again.
But I wonder, Miss Froy, if you could spare an hour to come with me to the Foreign Office. My chief, Stephen Yardley, would like a word.
Good gracious me! Whatever for?
Well, this is scarcely the place to go into details. Perhaps you'd all better come along. Would it be enough to say that it's a matter of national security?
Have any of you seen this morning's papers?
Mr. Yardley, I'm afraid we've not had much opportunity recently for anything so mundane as reading a newspaper.
I thought not. I have a copy of today's Times.
See that?
Ye gods.
Oh, my word! The poor prince! Is this true, Mr. Yardley? The Nazis have invaded Zabrovnia? The poor man, he must be in despair.
That's the very point we think you may be able to help us establish.
Me? Oh, you're quite mistaken. I know nothing at all about politics.
You lived for a year in the royal household.
Oh, yes, but I was concerned with the children's education, that's all. I took no part in anything political. Really, Mr. Yardley.
I believe you, Miss Froy. And it's not anything you did that interests us. It may be something you saw.
Something I saw?
And this something, would it have anything to do with what happened to poor Miss Froy on the train?
But I never saw anything of importance. I do assure you.
Let me explain what's supposed to have happened in Zabrovnia since you left the country at, when was it?
2 p.m. on Tuesday. It seems a lifetime away.
Well, on Tuesday afternoon at about 4 o'clock, Radio Zabrovnia announced that an armed insurrection led by Jan Pastrecht had seized key points in the capital, and there was fierce fighting in the streets. Pastrecht had apparently taken advantage of the absence of the Crown Prince to make his move. The Prince and the rest of the royal household were several hundred miles away, and the route back to the palace was barred by Pastrecht's guerrillas.
But Mr. Yardley...
Just a moment, Miss Froy. Let me finish. An hour later, the radio reported that government forces were falling back, and some had surrendered. At about 10 o'clock that night, the Commander-in-Chief sent an urgent wire to Herr Hitler, asking for Germany's help to crush the rebellion. Nazi stormtroopers crossed the Zabrovnian frontier at midnight. You were saying, Miss Froy?
But this story, it can't be correct. His Royal Highness was in the palace on Tuesday at about midday. I spoke to him myself. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, Miss Froy?
I went to the Prince's office suite. I'd never done that before. You see, I was leaving in a few hours, and I very much wanted to speak to His Royal Highness face to face. Baron Hofmeyer, his chef du cabinet, I suppose you'd call him, tried to convince me that the Prince wasn't in the capital, that he'd be away for several days. Then His Royal Highness suddenly burst out of his inner sanctum.
And that, Miss Froy, was the moment you saw something you shouldn't have seen. You saw Crown Prince Frederick in the capital, in charge of the government, just a few hours before a so-called insurrection and an apparently God-given excuse for the Nazis to march into Zabrovnia.
You mean the whole thing's a put-up job?
That's what we believe.
We think there was a deal. Crown Prince Frederick wants to parade to the world as a neutral, even as a victim, so it was vital for it to appear that he was hundreds of miles away when his commander-in-chief called for German help. The truth is, the Nazis have taken over the country by arrangement, and the Crown Prince will stay on his throne as a puppet.
But from the moment Miss Froy clapped eyes on the Prince in the palace on Tuesday afternoon, she was a mortal threat to the whole scheme.
The very second you left that room, Miss Froy, the Prince and Hofmeyer must have started their plotting.
Bloody woman. We are done for, Hofmeyer.
I don't think so, Your Royal Highness. We must simply make quite certain that she doesn't leave the country. She must never cross the frontier.
But we can't arrest her without causing a diplomatic incident. Think of the British ambassador. And we can't prevent her getting on that train this afternoon. The children are going to the station to see her off.
All right. We let her get on the train.
Oh, and then what? You're not a magician, Hofmeyer. You can't make a lady vanish.
Can I not, Your Royal Highness? Leave it to me. Leave everything to me.
And he set the whole thing up in a couple of hours. Some organizer.
But now, Miss Froy, thanks to you, we know the truth about the Crown Prince. He can't pose as an unwilling victim of the Nazis. Not to us.
We know he's hand in glove with them, and we'll act accordingly.
Don't thank me, gentlemen. It's these two young people here you should thank. Especially you, dear Iris. If you hadn't stuck to your guns, I'd never have left Zabrovnia alive. I owe what's left of my life to you.
Miss Froy.
And now, you two, what are you going to do with the rest of the day?
Miss Froy, you're nothing but an old matchmaker. All right, you've talked me into it. Iris, how about dinner and a nightclub?
What a lovely idea. I'm game.
Pick you up at 7.
Now that, Mr. Yardley, is what I call a young man who'll go far. In less than 24 hours, he's managed to find not one, but two ladies.
2nd October 1951. My dear Constance, further to my letter of the 20th, it seems I do indeed have little choice but to follow doctor's orders and take a period of rest away from Landry House. I cannot tell you how disappointed I am that I will not be here to greet you on your arrival, nor to offer you, for what it may be worth, my support and guidance through these important first weeks of your career. I will see you as soon as I am able. Meanwhile, I hope you will seize this unexpected opportunity to work with the brilliant Robert Murchison. I have great faith in his ability to run Landry House in my absence, and I am sure the two of you will get along famously. Sincere fond wishes, Joseph Edwards. P.S. Murchison is bringing a patient with him. Interesting case. Be sure to discuss.
Would you mind opening your window? I'd like some air.
Don't want to be reading while you're travelling on these lanes, ma'am. Make you poorly sick.
I'm quite all right, thank you.
Had a lot of rain up here. It's running off the hills. These little waterfall affairs all over.
We're certainly off the beaten track.
I'd say that's deliberate. Wouldn't want a place like that in a town, now would you?
Look out!
Blimey! You're halfway across the road.
Is there something wrong?
Stretching your legs, mate.
I'm sorry.
It's a blind bend, this. Sheer drop.
Please, go on.
Are you all right?
Yes. Yes, please.
I'll give him go on.
Wait, his hand, he's bleeding. There's mud on his suit. Do you need help?
No, really, thank you. Stay in the car. I'm a doctor. I have a patient with me. I just had to get out.
Is she unwell?
He became agitated, tried to take the wheel, but I've sedated him. Everything is perfectly under control.
Are you going to Landry House?
Yes.
I'm going there myself. Constance Sedgwick, I'm the new doctor. You're not Dr. Murchison?
Yes. Yes, I am, yes. Pleased to meet you.
Are you sure you're all right?
Thank you, I'm perfectly sure.
Shall we follow behind?
I'll follow.
Dr. Murchison, I'm so
I'm
pleased
getting off this bend.
We'll keep him in sight. He seems a little dazed.
Be glued to him. Madman. Out on the public highway.
Friday, October the 12th. Landry House Journal, Day 1. I've arrived. My name is on the door. Too overtired and excited for sleep. There are half a dozen patients and a rather frosty head nurse who also seems to be the pharmacist and secretary to Dr. E. An extraordinary first meeting with Dr. M. Disappointed not to speak properly with him when we arrived, but he's exhausted. Gone straight to his rooms. Had not expected him to be so handsome.
Dr. Edwards left me very clear notes. He's recommended that Dr. Sedgwick should be given responsibility for the care of Cicely Trullo and Harold Curtis.
That's wonderful. I mean to say, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Mr. Curtis, he's the man with an hysterical paralysis, isn't he? Dr. Edwards...
Do we have these patients' files, Nurse Dealing?
I do. Dr. Edwards left them in my care.
May I? Thank you.
I'm rather concerned about Cicely Trullo. Since Dr. Edwards told her he's to be away, she's not stopped scrubbing. Her obsessive cleaning...
I think that is hardly surprising, wouldn't you say, Dr. Murchison, assuming her fear of contamination is an expression of unacceptable desires.
I'm sure you're right.
relegated to the
Perhaps we can discuss this later.
Of course.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I would just like to confirm that the Reverend Hickett
We have a reverend?
He was a padre during the war.
He may interest me.
But Dr. Edwards would have wanted to...
Is not here, Nurse Dealing.
Clearly not.
Now, if I may, my patient, Geoffrey Godstone, it is of the utmost importance that I alone attend to him, and I personally will administer his medication and carry out nursing duties and deal with any correspondence, not that I necessarily expect any.
As you choose. Will he eat with the others?
No. Much of the time he will stay locked in his room.
Oh, we very rarely lock
He's an
patients
exceptional
in
case. As Dr. Sedgwick knows, he proved himself yesterday to be quite dangerous, although his violence was most out of character, but as a result of it, I must take extra precautions. He is, at any rate, delusional.
Are you all right, Doctor?
Yes, it's just a headache.
Can I...
No, I'm quite all right, thank you.
If I may, I had hoped, if this might be possible, to work alongside you sometimes, to learn from you. Dr. Edwards said, as you know, I'm only recently qualified, and being here as part of my training in analysis, I understand...
Good heavens, Dr. Sedgwick, do take a breath.
I'm sorry.
God, I feel I must have sounded like a bear with a sore head. Of course we shall work together every day. I do warn you, though, you'll soon be sick of the sight of me.
Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, Reverend Hickett usually likes to lead a service in the chapel. Dr. Edwards always attends.
Does he indeed?
I'm not sure why that's amusing. Reverend Hickett is deeply traumatised by his experiences in the war, a broken man, but he conducts a perfectly proper Church of England service.
Another reason to keep Godstone locked away, I'm afraid, as if I needed one. Oh, I don't think I told you. He believes himself to be a servant of the devil.
Saturday, October the 13th. I have so much to discover. Sensible thoughts. 1. I must seize this opportunity to learn all I can from Dr. M. The range of his medical interests is wider than I'd imagined. 2. Nurse Dealing probably has a repressed desire for Dr. Edwards. She has never married. I would love to ask her about her father. 3. A servant of the devil. 4. Dr. M is impressive. More nervous than he would admit. Frequently clenches his hands while talking. I've borrowed his Labyrinths of the Guilt complex from the library. A signed copy. He's asked me to call him Robert.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Such brio. Command. I wonder what drives this confidence. He would say it comes from God, but I mean something in his fundamental sense of self, his childhood self.
Dr. Edwards has always encouraged him to take the service. He would be here.
Landry House is a huge undertaking. I went to the bathroom in the middle of the night and Dr. Murchison's light was still on.
Probably fussing over his special patient, if he was half as interested in the others.
He's there?
Well, he's missed the boat.
Have you worked here a long time?
I've worked for Dr. Edwards since September 1932.
Gosh.
He bought Landry House at the end of the war. Always thought he'd go back to Austria one day. He lost his entire family to the Nazis. There's only his sister. She followed him over when he came here to study in 1920. She's still in Felixstowe.
Reverend Hickett? I believe so.
What does he want with him? Reverend Hickett will be most anxious.
I'm sure he's simply interested. Despite your doubts, I'm sure he is.
Well, he's taking him somewhere. Where are they going?
Truly, Anne. Dr. Edwards spoke so highly of Murchison. He'll be careful.
Dr. Sedgwick, I don't think...
Please, call me Constance. Do let's be friends.
Will Hartley win? I'm not so sure.
But Mr. Churchill is an old man. He's had his day.
Set the people free? No?
He sounded ghastly on the wireless.
It's clear you're not to be convinced.
I'm not. But I'm no politician.
Oh, I think you are. You handle Nurse Dealing with great tact and skill.
I respect her.
One couldn't help but do so. She has extensive knowledge and commitment, experience. I think she dislikes me.
Oh, no. No.
Yes, yes. Constance, you're a psychiatrist. Surely you cannot be so blind to the nuances of repressed behaviour.
Well, you're not Dr. Edwards, are you?
I don't think so.
So it's inevitable. She feels you've displaced him, and she's perhaps a little worried by your interest in the Reverend Hickett. A little possessive.
I'm merely interested in his faith.
Oh, so am I. The psychology of belief.
There may not be such a distance between him and Godson.
But surely...
Would you have dinner with me tomorrow night? In my rooms? That it would be a chance to discuss...
What is it? What are you looking at?
That downpipe on the chapel wall. It's come away from the gutter. There's nowhere for the...
It's only rain. We can get it repaired.
I'm so sorry. It's my head again. I suffer from rotten headaches.
You should see a doctor. Let me fetch you a glass of water.
No, it'll pass. It's passing.
I shall... "1:30 a.m. Can't sleep. So much for boxes. Oh, sorry, you startled me. Can't think why. The light was on. I should have guessed. I just came for a book.
Then you're in the right place. So I'm not the only one who can't sleep.
No.
It's a very pretty dressing gown.
You look as if you're studying. Working. I won't disturb you.
Would you like a drink?
Well...
I'd found a little whiskey. I'm hoping it doesn't belong to Nurse Dealing.
Gosh, we must replace it.
I will, I promise. Would you like some?
I don't really drink whiskey. I find it a little harsh.
Here, try it. I've added water.
It smells very strong.
It'll help you sleep.
Delicious.
Constance.
Please don't keep looking at me. I feel so foolish.
I can't help it.
I should go back to bed. May I take your drink?
Of course, but please don't. You don't have to leave.
It's very late.
Or very early.
I'm sure I'll sleep now.
Oh, good. Sweet dreams.
4 a.m. Love is a delusional psychosis. And don't you ever forget it, Constance Sedgwick.
You see, it's my arm, nurse. Completely paralysed.
And do you have pain in it?
A dull ache, I'd call it. Sometimes. Usually nothing.
And tell me, Mr. Curtis, this trouble with your arm, it started when the business in which you were a partner was running into difficulties, is that correct?
I'd rather not talk about that.
How does it make you feel to speak of it?
Oh, gosh. I'm not used to such questions from a girl. It makes me feel bad.
Bad?
Because I am bad. It reminds me of my failure.
But, as I understand it, any failure in your business didn't rest with you. Your accounts were certainly in order.
My failure as a human being. You see, you can't catch me out, nurse. I know myself inside out.
I apologise for disturbing you. May I have a word?
Excuse me one moment.
Listen.
What am I supposed to hear?
Wait. There, Mr. Godstone. I've been listening at his door. He's rather disturbed.
Is Dr. Murchison with him?
He's alone in there. Dr. Murchison is nowhere to be found.
He's expressly forbidden any interference. We must respect his authority.
In all my years of nursing, I've never ignored a patient in distress.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Anne. You work in a psychiatric hospital, albeit a very small and privileged one. You're surely not trying to tell me you've never before heard the wailing of a disturbed patient.
Very well. As Dr. Murchison is nowhere to be found, I yield to your wisdom.
Anne, please.
They're stealing.
Doctor?
I've just... I had a small drink of your whiskey last night. I've been out to try and find you a replacement. Not that I drank it all, you understand. What's the matter?
Well, quite probably nothing.
It's Geoffrey Godstone.
What of him?
He was making a noise. Calling. Now stealing... We were a little concerned.
I trust you didn't go to him.
Of course I didn't. You asked us not to. There he is again.
I'll see to him directly. Here, please, take it. With my apologies.
Thank you. I'll put it in Dr. Edwards' rooms.
I was so nervous when I arrived at Robert's rooms for dinner. I drank a large glass of wine terribly quickly. Became quite tipsy. Tried to appear sober, to talk to him about his books and his research, but he didn't want to. Fear I must have sounded like a schoolgirl with a crush.
I'd like to drink a toast to us. Whatever happens next, tonight we're here together and I'm the luckiest man alive.
I'm not sure I like whatever happens next. I'll be looking over my shoulder all evening.
No, take no notice, I'm a miserable pessimist.
Oh dear, are you really?
It's an effect of the war, don't you think?
But we won.
Yes, we won. Doesn't mean it didn't shake us up.
I thought we went to war to make the world a safer place.
We did, and it is. Poor Constance, you look like a frightened child.
Well, I'm not. You sound like a neurotic melancholic.
Well, maybe I am.
Did you have a difficult war? Where were you?
I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about you. I want to shout your name from the chimney tops of Laundry House.
Robert.
Look here. I bought a newspaper on the whiskey drip. A streetcar named Desire. Will you come?
To the pictures?
Well, why not?
I'd love to. Just that we're working. Perhaps we shouldn't both disappear.
Oh, you're right. You're so good and conscientious.
Oh, please stop. You're making me sound horribly dull. I want to be silly and carefree.
Never dull. Never. Never. Come here.
To the table, dripping onto the floor, beige carpet, red wine. Try and rescue the carpet. Oh, heavens. And then, quite suddenly, he slumped back in his chair.
You're too late. Can't you see that you're too late?
What is it? Robert, you're overtaxed. Coming here, you're patient, your research. Let me help you.
No, I'm all right. I'm all right. Momentary. Damn it. Damn it. I'm so sorry, Constance. Trullo.
Oh, please call me Cicely. Or Sissy, better still. Dr. Edwards always calls me Sissy. I'm not one for standing on ceremony.
I explained to Sissy that you would be sitting in on some of our consultations, with her permission. I just asked her about 2 years ago to say whatever comes into
Please
her...
don't sit on that chair, Doctor. It's not clean.
How is it not clean, Sissy?
In every way. It's dirty.
If I wiped it with a cloth...
I'd rather do it myself, if you don't mind. Expect you think I'm a lunatic, don't you? Expect I am.
I don't think anything of the sort. I think that one's mind is... Well, one's mind is like a large house with many rooms. Imagine that house as a mind, Sissy, with some rooms that are hidden, sealed up behind walls.
Oh.
Now, however long one's lived in one's house, those rooms remain impossible to find. We don't even know they exist. Other rooms are locked. We have the key, but we may have misplaced it, or we may be a little nervous to look inside this room we closed off when we were just, say, 8 or 9 years old. This room that is full of our forgotten past.
And full of dust.
And cobwebs, no doubt. Sometimes, though, the weight of objects in those locked and hidden rooms places a huge strain on the house. And the walls are bulging, the ceilings begin to crack.
I thought you doctors were supposed to make me feel better. I could burst into tears.
No. Let me... Well, something may have happened to you 2 years ago, maybe something very small, apparently of no consequence, that reminded you of what you've locked away in one of those rooms.
Dr. Edwards asked me that.
I have Dr. Edwards' notes. Your notes, Sissy. Notes of what you've told him. Your employer, Colonel Rickaby, he had a riding accident around that time.
Yes, he did. And what of it? I told Dr. Edwards. He broke his arm. I did a few extra jobs for him. I don't see what that has to do with anything.
That's all right, Sissy. Now, these minds of ours, they don't want us to see. Part of you can't face it, those cracks in the ceiling. So you don't look up. And you push a heavy sideboard against the bulging wall.
Perhaps we should let Miss Trullo rest for a while, Doctor. I think you're a little tired,
But something has tipped over in one of those rooms. And it's seeping under the door, and you scrub, and you clean, and you must get rid of it. That dirty, seeping, guilty stain in your house.
The house I grew up in. My two brothers
Robert
shared
is a
bedroom.
quite brilliant
One night I
doctor.
remember one of them
I'm certain that today we've made a significant advance in the therapeutic treatment of CT. If only Anne Dealing could have witnessed this. She may just have been convinced.
Help me! For pity's sake, get me out of here!
Robert? Are you in there? Mr. Godstone, please be calm. Thank heavens. Do you have a key to this room?
I've a set of master keys Dr. Edwards left in my care. But I thought we were to ignore Mr. Godstone.
I don't know where Robert is.
Shopping for whiskey?
Get your keys. I want you to come to Mr. Godstone's room with me.
Very well.
I don't know what I expected to find. That Godstone the diabolist had attacked his doctor? Sacrificed him at a makeshift shrine to Satan?
Dr. Sedgwick, you're squeezing my arm. I'd be grateful if you didn't.
Do you have some bromide?
Of course.
The air in the room was stale. Godstone lay face down on the floor, quietly weeping, his energy apparently spent. Beside him, the ruins of a cabinet he'd managed to pull from the wall. A miracle it hadn't crushed him. Perhaps he was trying to drag himself to the barred window. There was a deep gash, several days old, and a dark bruising on his forehead. And his feet were bandaged.
Come along now, Mr. Godstone. Look at this mess. What on earth were you trying to do?
Get out of here. Have to go.
You're quite safe in hospital, but you must stay in bed and rest. Your doctor will be here soon.
No! Let's make you comfortable. Just a little tiny sting. I'm only giving him a light sedative. In my opinion, he's already drugged to the eyeballs.
Whatever you think is best.
Look at his foot.
She had removed the bandage from his left foot. Beneath it, the sole was cut raw, in the perfect shape of a cross. Without speaking, she unwrapped the other bandage. His right foot the same. A crucifix, carved from his flesh.
Tried to kill me.
Are these? I assume he...
Hit me. Wants me dead.
He probably banged his head in the car. There was a struggle, I understand, before Dr. Murchison was able to sedate him.
Murchison.
Why in heaven has he done this to his own feet?
What the hell are you doing in here?
I made a professional decision that Mr. Godstone may be in danger of harming
I
himself.
expressly forbade you to have any contact with my
He
patient.
was agitated, extremely upset.
Now you're being emotional. Constance? Constance, don't go.
His head wound. And the cuts on his feet.
They are self-inflicted.
Of course, but they're nasty injuries. His feet, the wounds are shaped...
Here, as you're so curious, the medical records of Geoffrey Godstone. Read them. Now, they'll tell you that he has cut the shape of the cross into the soles of his feet that he may forever trample on God. It is a statement of contempt, a sign that he is with Satan. You look pale. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left him. And I should have spoken to you. I was outside.
Didn't you hear it?
No, I mean, I was walking outside looking for conkers. Here, it's a beauty. It's for you.
It's lovely. Silly. Like polished wood.
Yes, you can probably see your face in it. Can you?
Not quite.
If you could, I would have to take it back from you so that I could gaze at you all day long.
In a conker?
Sorry, I didn't put that very well.
I'm not sure it was terribly romantic.
You make me tongue-tied.
You make me spill wine. He kissed me, and I wanted it to never end. We stood there in each other's arms, in broad daylight. Two professional people supposed to be with their patients, and I didn't care. I didn't care who saw us. I wouldn't have cared if the world caught fire. All I'd ever worked for counted for nothing compared to this. How frighteningly, wonderfully insane.
My darling girl. There's something I have to do.
And then the telephone rang. I would happily have thrown it across the room. You must answer.
Laundry house? Who? Yes, this is Robert Murchison. I'm sorry, I know no one of that name.
Robert? Robert? What's wrong? Perhaps it was just that the interruption brought him back to his senses. At any rate, he said he had to go, and he left, in quite a hurry. And this evening he ate alone in his rooms. So now I'm all at 6s and 7s, pretending I'm glad of an early night.
I'm a doctor. I needed some medication for my patient.
You helped yourself to drugs from a locked dispensary without consulting me and without making a record in the logbook. Dr. Edwards would be... He would not tolerate such sloppy, dangerous...
Dangerous?
We are in a hospital. You took sufficient quantities of bromide to sedate a herd of buffalo. Enough, in fact, to kill a man.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting nothing. I am merely wondering. Perhaps you're planning to open a small pharmacy of your own.
I've made it clear I am handling all aspects of Geoffrey Godstone's care. This includes administering and monitoring his medication. I don't want to have to keep coming back to the dispensary.
I heard raised voices. I don't mean to intrude.
I've patients to see.
Not the Reverend Hickett, I hope.
Anne?
Please go.
Was he beastly? It sounded that way.
I'm rather tired.
It must be difficult, with Dr. Edwards away, and us not really knowing the ropes. Must feel as though you're holding the fort pretty much alone. If there's anything I can...
There's nothing. I must get on.
I do agree Dr. Murchison has been thoughtless. I think his head aches. I'll talk to him tomorrow after morning consultations. I'm going for a walk with him.
Are you sure that's wise?
What do you mean?
You're young. You barely know him.
I feel as if I do.
One's capacity for misery is boundless when one is in love. That's what Joseph Edwards would have to say.
I must confess I do rather wish Dr. Edwards was here.
Then you do, then you don't, then you say well, and then you what? Constance, come in here. Listen to this.
What are you doing in Dr. Edwards' study?
I was looking for a book he recommended and I found a gramophone.
Robert, this is a hospital.
Come on!
Stop pulling me. Turn it off. I need to speak to you.
Dance with me.
Are you crazy?
Dr. Sedgwick, not something I think you should ask in a place like this.
Anne's doing her rounds. She'll be upset. You mustn't.
Irresistible.
Stop it. We're supposed to be with our patients. Anne, this is most... I do apologise. Most improper. I know. A moment of thoughtlessness.
Well, I always find now stealing that music hath charms to soothe the savage beast. I'm most interested in music as a component in the therapeutic treatment of a wide range of disorders.
You may or may perhaps not be aware, Dr. Murchison, that Joseph Edwards would agree with you wholeheartedly. And were he here, he may well be playing music in the evenings with his patients, for his patients. You may even have found him leading a foxtrot or a slow waltz around the dining room. I hazard the guess that you would not, however, have witnessed him dancing in the modern style with a female colleague in his private rooms at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
You're absolutely right.
Could I speak with you privately, Dr. Sedgwick? On an entirely other matter.
Excuse me, Dr. Murchison. Stop it.
I have just been speaking to a Daphne Saunders. She is from Dr. Murchison's publishing house. They were expecting a call from him. On Monday, not having heard from him, she telephoned here. I remember. I took the call and put her through.
Go on.
She's been wondering what to do ever since. She tells me that the man who picked up the telephone and who called himself Dr. Murchison claimed not to know her. He cut her off. She also says she did not recognise his voice.
But that's ridiculous. Maybe he... Have you asked him about this? Surely this woman is some patient or ex-patient of Robert's. She may be pursuing
Constance,
him.
Please listen. I have been thinking for days. Geoffrey Godston is heavily drugged, more so than any patient I've ever seen. His head injury suggests a forceful attack. The wounds on his feet appeared on Tuesday to be fresh.
I don't follow.
Now, hear me out. Reverend Hickett is distressed by Dr. Murchison's questioning. He feels his faith is being challenged. And Dr. Murchison was not willing on Sunday to attend the church service.
What is this? Where is this leading?
Dr. Murchison has no apparent wound from Geoffrey Godston's assault. But he does have headaches. His trance states, I would be tempted to call them, are distinctly odd. Then there was the medication taken from the dispensary.
I said to you he was just thoughtless, and his headaches...
I'd rather you didn't go walking with him.
You would rather I didn't?
I believe Geoffrey Godston attacked Dr. Murchison on the way here.
He did, we know
Knocked him out, drugged him, drove him to Landry House, and locked him in the room.
Godston locked Robert in the room? Mm-hmm. No. You're suggesting that Geoffrey Godston is posing as Dr. Murchison?
He could easily have cut Dr. Murchison's feet.
That's completely and utterly absurd.
I didn't really expect you to take me
You
seriously.
took against Robert from the moment he stepped out of his
I'm not
car.
sure how else you will explain.
You
At the
probably
very least,
resented him
Daphne
before you
Saunders
even met him, because he isn't Joseph Edwards.
If you mean that I have a responsibility to Dr. Edwards, then yes, I do. And it's a responsibility I am determined to uphold.
I'm piling little pieces of wood into the grate. I know that in order for the fire to light, They must be very evenly placed. I'm being very careful, but my hands are shaking.
He became agitated. He tried to take the wheel.
His mouth is a great black cavern swallowing me up.
Reverend Hickett usually likes to lead a service in the chapel. Dr. Edwards always attends.
Does he indeed?
Bursts into flames. And as it does so, it's...
I was looking for conkers. Here. It's a beauty for you. I know no one by that name.
And I have the awful feeling that I was the one who was screaming.
My darling girl. My darling, darling girl.
I had a sore throat, you know, when I woke. Doctor?
Yes. Of course. Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Good. I think we'll talk about this next time.
Have you written it all down?
I've made notes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Was it sufficiently interesting?
It was most interesting.
Oh. Well, I felt you'll see how it'll restore the use of my arm.
The dream will not help your arm directly, but when we talk about your dreams, you may begin to understand them. With my help. We're trying to reach a part of your mind that's locked away. A drawing of flowers. And we can't with control love, it because we Robert. don't even know it's there. The only way we can hope to reach it is to... Labyrinths of the Guilt Complex. That's like a warder. It's a signed standing guard copy. at the gates. We want to lure that warder away from his post so that the secrets of your unconscious mind can come out for us to see.
Well, thank you very much, my dear. Most enlightening.
It's a signed copy. Forgive me, Mr. Curtis. There is something I have to attend to. Poor Mr. Curtis. I hurried to my room. Robert's note here in my journal, the signed book beside my bed. I knew just what I'd see when I turned to the title page. The little flourish on the tip of the R, the thin looping B and T. Nothing like the Robert of my note. I was looking at the handwriting of two different men.
It's a surprise.
I don't like surprises.
Don't you? This is very interesting, Doctor.
I've told you before, I'm not amused. Is it lunch?
In the manner of speaking.
It had better not be a dead rabbit or a pheasant.
Why on earth would I have such a thing?
Who knows?
Never mind why in God's name I would bring a dead animal on a walk in the hills with a beautiful woman. Constance, what's the matter?
That kit bag, or whatever it is, some kind of gamekeeper's sack, made me think of hunting, or... I don't know.
I found the bag in the kitchen. I borrowed it for the stolen picnic.
So I'm not so wrong.
Tin of ham from the pantry.
That's at least a fortnight's rations.
Half a loaf, 2 apples, a packet of Spangles, and a bottle of Dr. Edwards' finest white wine. I thought we should avoid red, seeing as you're such a clumsy chump. I even remembered a corkscrew and a knife.
You must have been a Boy Scout.
I must indeed.
Don't you remember?
Don't I remember what?
If you're a Boy Scout. You said I must indeed have been a Boy
Constance,
Scout.
we're not in Laundry House. We're having an afternoon off. Would you please? I'm crackers about you.
I'm tired, Robert. I didn't sleep a wink last night.
Are you unwell?
No. Can we go down to the river? I'd... I can't tell you.
My darling, there is nothing you can't tell me.
I don't want to paddle in the stream.
It was just... I'm just tired. I'm just as foolish...
Don't say that. You are clever and beautiful, and you must know that I've fallen hopelessly in love with you.
Oh, please don't, Robert. Can you just put your shoes back on, please? And can we... ask you?
Yes?
Please, don't be angry, darling. I'm sure it's a silly muddle. But on Sunday, I borrowed a copy of Labyrinth of the Guilt Complex from the library. You'd signed it. Probably given as a gift for Landry House. Then, after we had dinner the other night, you wrote me the note to ask... I thought you were going to throw me in, but you were saving me, weren't you?
I don't know.
I thought the other day you might be hydrophobic, but no. It's the sound. And water rushing, falling. Your headaches, your trance states, a dynamic phobia. Something has happened to make you afraid. It's all right. We'll go back to Landry House. I'll stay with you.
No, you have to leave me. The thing is, I don't remember. I don't know for sure. When you saw me on the road on the way here, I don't remember how I got there. I don't even know if I am Robert Murchison.
These pains in your head, the water, your mind in terrible conflict. You're trying to remember something, but it's too awful to remember, so you forget.
That's just it, Constance. What if... I was standing on the side of the road with a rock in my hand. Johnstone was unconscious in the back of the car. His head was bleeding. I must have hit him. I had no idea who he was. Or who I was. On the front seat there were directions to Landry House and a briefcase, medical papers. I was looking at them, trying to decide what to do when you came along in your taxi.
You're suffering from amnesia. It explains everything. I should have known, but I didn't want to know. I'm going to help you. You've done nothing wrong, Robert. You're suffering from a condition that can be cured through analysis.
No.
It's much too late for no. Of course you're Robert Murchison. You're certainly not Godston, so who else could you be? Come on, my darling. Let's go back. I want us to get the car. I want to take you somewhere.
Oh, thank goodness. Constance, are you all right?
Yes. Yes, of course. What's wrong?
Where is he?
Dr. Murchison. He's just gone to the bathroom.
So, you are safe.
Dr. Edwards!
I am sooner than you expected. You are later than we expected.
But you're supposed to be taking a rest
I didn't
cure.
ask him to come. I did send a wire on Tuesday.
Anne, please, I came because I was concerned. I'm glad I came.
I didn't know what else to do.
What's happening? Why are you here?
I expect it's nearly time to... Hello?
I don't believe we've met.
I'm Robert Murchison.
Excuse me.
Robert, this is Dr. Joseph Edwards.
Good afternoon.
Where's Nurse Dealing gone to?
She's just...
Robert, we must tell him.
If you're going to tell me that this is not my friend, Robert Murchison, there's no need. I can see as much.
Oh, God help me.
I've brought some tea.
If you must be here, sit down and be quiet. Your friend, Mr. X, and I are trying to concentrate. Please, continue.
That's it. I wake up feeling terrible every time.
Now, is it possible, I wonder, that you actually jumped from a burning aeroplane? The sense of your mother's arms, your image of floating, bobbing in your school chair. I'm interpreting possibly a parachute, the branches of a tree.
I gashed my leg. Here, it's the scar. I was in the medical corps, I think.
Go on.
I can't. It's no good.
No, it's not no good. It's no time. We need days, weeks of intensive work to retrieve this memory. Constance, your friend has forgotten who he is.
I know.
I'm going to the police.
Amnesia is not a crime.
I'll drive you.
No!
If I'm not Murchison, then where is he? Constance, he's missing. I've got his car, his papers, his patients. I think I've got his luggage. I seem to have an awful lot of clothes.
Please, not the police. Not yet. Please,
Godstone must know the truth, and he's afraid of me, and that's why I had to sedate him, because
It's obvious you're a doctor.
I think I am.
Possibly a colleague of Murchison. You haven't forgotten everything. The other night you talked about Burgess and Maclean. And the King. You know the King is ill. And the Dome of Discovery. You said you had been up to London.
I do remember the Festival of Britain. I may have met Robert Murchison there.
What makes you say that?
I don't know. There was a Chinese dragon, a room set out. It's supposed to be Sherlock Holmes' sitting room at 221B Baker Street. Great fun.
And you were with Robert?
I was with someone, I think, but I don't... My head hurts.
You must try.
I have been trying for days.
There's somewhere we have to go, Dr. Edwards, before it's dark.
No, Constance. What if I killed him?
I don't believe you could have done.
You don't know. I might be dangerous.
Dr. Edwards, surely Freud said that the condition of amnesia does not essentially alter the sufferer.
But yes, any phobias will remain. New ones are unlikely to develop. A man who dislikes the later music of Schoenberg will not discover a sudden passion for atonality.
I trust this man. I believe he is conflicted, in denial, possibly in the throes of dissociative fugue, but I do not believe for a second that he is a murderer.
Ah, but my dear, you are in love. Love is an impossible project. And if I may say this, one is very crazy when in love.
But...
I'm driving myself to the police station.
Wait! Dr. Edwards, is it not true that sometimes if a patient is taken back, actually, physically taken back to the place where a trauma or a significant incident occurred, then a memory or reenactment of an emotion may occur?
Yes, this can...
Then we must go to the place on the road where I first saw him.
Joseph, the police are on their way.
Oh.
They found a body in the valley, beneath the crags a couple of miles down the road. I'm sorry to say I think it's Robert Murchison.
Constance! Don't be so foolish! Constance!
I told him Dr. Edwards was too tired to drive. I doubt he believed me, but he said nothing. I didn't tell him a body had been found. We had been driving for 5 minutes when a police car came in sight, travelling towards Landry House. Neither of us mentioned it. It was easy to remember the blind bend where we'd first met a week ago. The hill looked as if it had been chiselled from limestone, but for the streams of water that sprang everywhere like leaks from a giant colander. The dry stone wall that edged the lane was broken down. The drop to the valley was sheer. As Robert slowed the car, I watched a lone kestrel hang in the air, as if it was held by invisible wires. In the half-light, this was a bleak and unforgiving place.
No, it is no good. I am exhausted. I just want it to be over. The police will
Come
be
nearer
able to...
the edge. Over here. Let me hold on to you. Don't try to think. Just allow...
What are those lights? There's lights down there. Police. Searching, people with lanterns calling.
It's all right. It may be just...
Under the water. He's under the water. There's no point in looking down there. He's here. On the shelf of rock. You're too late. The waterfall!
There's no waterfall.
Foolish, dare you try and touch the water. I'll go first. No, I will. Hold on. Michael! Help me, someone! He's falling, I can't... Michael! He fell. He fell, my brother, he fell.
It's all right, my darling. It's all right.
Dr. Constance Sedgwick? and Dr. John Ballantyne. I must ask you both to accompany us to the police station for questioning concerning the death of Dr. Robert Murchison.
He's innocent. It was an accident.
Godstone was restless. I remember. Robert stopped the car.
You can tell us all of this at the station if you don't mind, sir.
Please let him speak for a moment longer.
No, I felt a little dizzy. The water. Murchison was concentrating on me. Godstone started rambling. Something about Lucifer. He sometimes thought he was Lucifer and that he could fly. He got out of the car and Robert grabbed him. I think he thought he was going to jump over the edge. Godstone probably thought that Robert was trying to harm him, and then I remember there was a tussle, and it was muddy after all the rain, and I grabbed a rock from the road and hit Godstone with it, but it was too late.
Yes, nerve shock, and riddled with guilt for surviving.
It will have brought the trauma back.
And you had lost sight of the truth many years earlier. Your experiences in the war will have strengthened your belief that you were responsible for your brother's death.
It obsessed me. He was 12 when he died. I was only 10.
You developed an even more extreme guilt complex. Robert's death bore so many similarities. It was the last straw. Too much for your mind to comprehend. Easier to become him than to accept his death.
He was my doctor for a time, but he broke a rule of his profession. We became friends.
That was most unprofessional of him, Dr. Ballantyne.
And then we lost touch, met up again by accident in London at the Festival of Britain, spent a day together. He was concerned I was still not well and wanted to see me again as my doctor.
Guilt was his specialism.
And then you asked him to come to Landry House for a few weeks. He suggested I should come with him, begin my treatment whilst he was here.
He didn't tell me.
He did. It was Godstone he didn't mention. He was worried you'd refuse to have him here on the grounds that Godstone was an unsuitable case for analysis.
So you are the interesting case I was to be sure to discuss.
But in your notes, there was something about God.
I'm an atheist. That's all. Well, not quite all. My father's a clergyman. Think he always hoped I'd follow him. Gave up on all of that the day my brother died.
Ah, that would have interested Robert. There's something I have to ask you, though I think I know the answer. Something that is bothering Constance no end. Are you a married atheist?
Dr. Redwoods, I didn't mean you to.
It's funny you should ask. I do hope to be, in fact, very soon. If Constance will consider being my wife.
John,
Yeah, but you hardly met. Yesterday she didn't even know your name.
I'm sorry to be the spectre at the feast, but Harold Curtis is refusing to settle down for the night. He was expecting a consultation this afternoon. And I brought some whisky tumblers. Thought a wee dram might be what the doctor ordered.
Saturday, October the 20th. John and I are planning a few days away together. I promised to be back by Thursday, but I know my future at Landry House is uncertain, and that the death of Robert Murchison has placed a great burden on Dr. Edwards' weary shoulders. This evening, as dusk fell, I watched him from my window. He was sweeping leaves from the drive. Anne stood on the steps behind him, and though I couldn't make out their words, the soft drone of their conversation drifted up, and I found myself believing I could hear every word they spoke.
I can manage, Anne. I'm fit enough to clear a few leaves from the drive.
You should be sitting down.
I'm thinking. I think better when I'm doing.
What are you thinking?
That this is the end of something. That everything is on the edge of change.
You're overtired.
But still, I'm going to retire. Don't look at me like that.
I'll look at you how I please. Where will you go?
The fate of the emigrant, always on the way, in between. Nowhere is home. Will you come with me?
To nowhere? Flattered to be asked, Joseph.
Oh, how about if for once I follow you?
Perhaps.
Constance, I found October flowers.
Be quiet. You'll disturb the patients.
I'll throw them. Will you catch?
You can't throw them this high. Come up.
I can't.
Why not?
You've bewitched me. I'm rooted to the spot.
Don't be ridiculous.
You are so spellbindingly beautiful.
I'm closing the window. It's freezing cold. Come up.
By 1950, I had nearly pulled myself free of the primeval slime which is Hollywood. I had scored 2 modest successes with my scripts for Double Indemnity and The Blue Dahlia, both of which were nominated for Academy Awards, which, of course, they did not win. I had also, in my own humble terms, earned a great deal of money from this literary prostitution, far more than I earned from the creation of the novels upon which I believe whatever slender reputation I have will be built. I had, meanwhile, developed bronchitis, skin allergies, and shingles, all of which were settling nicely into becoming chronic conditions. The time to flee from the madness of the movie business was long overdue. Then, through my agent, I unexpectedly received an invitation from Mr. Alfred Hitchcock. He wanted me to write a screenplay based upon a novel called Strangers on a Train by a new writer called Miss Patricia Highsmith. I thought I might like Hitchcock, who was that rare thing in Hollywood, an intelligent director of imagination and humor. My dear wife was not enthusiastic. I should have listened to Sissy.
Strangers on a Film by Stephen Wyatt, starring Patrick Stewart as Raymond Chandler and Clive Swift as Alfred Hitchcock.
Well, first of all, we tried to get John Steinbeck for the screenplay of Strangers. Then we tried for Thornton Wilder. There was even a chance for a while that Dashiell Hammett might do it. He'd had writer's block for nearly a decade, so that would have been something. In all, 8 eminent writers turned me down. Then suddenly there was the possibility of obtaining the services of Raymond Chandler. He had the reputation of being a difficult man, but he was undoubtedly the caliber of writer we needed. Now, contrary to popular opinion, I like writers. I enjoy talking to them, and I count several writers among my good friends. If actors are cattle, then writers are thoroughbred horses. Put them at their ease, and they'll take you where you need to go. I like Mr. Chandler's work, so as I said to my wife, why shouldn't I like him too? I should have listened to Alma.
When a doorbell goes in one of my novels, it is usually a very bad idea to open the door. Outside could be a man with a gun, or a beautiful woman without a gun, but with murderous intentions. Instead, I took delivery of a package from the studio of Warner Brothers. There was a copy of Miss Patricia Highsmith's novel, there was a treatment for the screenplay provided by a Mr. Whitfield Cook. The novel was a silly enough story, but in outlining a way the novel could be reshaped for the screen, Mr. Whitfield Cook had made suggestions that were even sillier. No wonder they needed a proper writer on board. Apart from reasons given previously for saying yes, did I forget to mention the prospect of very large sums of money?
In vino veritas. In 1950, I was not at the pinnacle of my career. After making a stiflingly dull studio movie called The Paradigm Case, I had gone independent. I made a film called Rope. It was a technical triumph and a box office disaster. Then I returned to England to make a film with Ingrid Bergman. I was finally coming home, the great director with one of the greatest stars in the world on my arm. Do you know that wonderful Greek word, hubris? Under Capricorn, cost a fortune and died at the box office. The English press, of course, was delighted. So I made a smaller picture called Stage Fright starring Marlene Dietrich, on the principle that nothing starring that ultimate professional Frau Dietrich could be without merit. It was. I was finished as an independent producer. I needed the support of a Hollywood studio again, so I sought what I call a run-for-cover project, a project with which I could convince the brothers Warner would be a classic Hitchcock movie and a big box-office success. I started reading Miss Highsmith's book, appropriately enough, on a train.
Warner Brothers offered me $2,500 a week for a minimum of 5 weeks' work. When I first worked in Hollywood with the indefatigable Mr. Billy Wilder, I received $750 a week, and I thought it riches beyond the dreams of avarice. Oh, the devil knows how to tempt a writer. I talked it all over with Sissy. She was playing her beloved Chopin on the $3,000 Steinway I'd bought her. The poor darling was not in good health, and I was determined not to leave her. Certainly not to return to work in the studios where I had spent so many unhappy hours incarcerated in the aptly named writer's block. She thought the job would make me very unhappy. So I announced that I would only accept the contract if I could work on the screenplay at home in La Jolla. If they wanted me, Mr. Hitchcock would have to travel 100 miles from Los Angeles for script conferences. I did not for one moment think he would agree.
A memo went the rounds of Warner Studios penned by myself. Since the mountain won't come to Mohammed is going down, because I thought, why not? And, of course, there's La Jolla itself. No billboards or concessions or beachfront shacks for the citizens of La Jolla. In fact, the place has an air of cool decency and good manners, which is quite startling in California. Then I remembered Mr. Chandler was brought up and educated in England, so there was an affinity between us I had not previously realized. But then he went to a public school. I, the son of shopkeepers from Leytonstone, of course, did not. As I arrived, I made a mental note. You could shoot a very nasty murder in the discreet suburbs of La Jolla.
From the window, I saw the limousine stop and Mr. Hitchcock's considerable bulk slowly emerge. I took a drink to steady my nerves. Only one. I intended to be on best behavior.
I was intrigued. This was one of the few writers in the field of crime fiction who deserved respect. A man who was obsessed by darkness, death, and suspense. A man, in short, after my own heart. Mr. Chandler.
Mr. Hitchcock.
He was in his 60s, 10 years at least older than myself. Tense and suspicious looking. I'd have cast him as a nosy neighbour or a down-at-heels newspaper reporter, but there was a bright, challenging look behind the spectacles, hopefully not entirely due to alcohol.
Does anybody in the civilized world not know what Mr. Alfred Hitchcock looks like? He'd made himself the most visible movie director there's ever been. It must have been one of his greatest artistic achievements. This is a pleasure, Mr. Hitchcock.
Oh, please, call me Hitch. Everybody does, including my wife, Hitch, without the cock.
You may call me Raymond, maybe even Ray. Not everybody is encouraged to do that.
Well, both of us, I believe, were brought up in England, where such intimacy could only be assumed after 30 years of acquaintance.
My feelings exactly. Hitch.
Ray.
Please, Hitch, come in. Welcome to La Jolla. Frankly, La Jolla is a gilded suburb full of barren old women and arthritic billionaires, but my wife has always wanted to live here.
You have children, then?
No. Why? Do you?
A daughter. She wants to be an actress, foolish girl.
This way, please. The view from our living room over the bay has excited admiration. A radio writer who came to visit burst into tears when he saw it.
They're like that.
This is my study. Please, take a seat.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say...
shall we start? I don't expect you like wasting time. Juanita, my secretary, has laid out all the stuff the studio sent me, the novel, the treatment, and here's my notebook and pen. So, when you're ready, Hitch.
In any collaboration, I think it's always best to get to know each other a bit first. We're two passengers at the very start of our journey, two strangers meeting on a film.
Well, in that case, maybe we could have a drink.
Of course. Maybe we could go and sit in your delightful garden. I'm sorry, directors like telling people what to do. So, tell me, Raymond, do you have an explanation?
An explanation for what?
For why you write about the things you do.
What things?
Well, violence, fear, murder, perversion.
But aren't your films about these things too?
Oh, yes, I love making people very nervous or very scared. Preferably both, and particularly women.
So, do you have an explanation?
When people ask me, I say it's because when I was young, my mother said boo to me.
Does that satisfy them?
It satisfies me because they don't know how to take it. But the real explanation for my interest in terror is that when I was very naughty as a boy, my father took me to the police station with a note, and I was locked up in a prison cell overnight.
Is that true?
True enough. How about you?
I found a genre, the detective novel, and I've tried to the best of my ability to write something of value within it.
And your genre involves murderous blondes and endless violence, not to mention a large number of people leaving this life in very perverse and rather inventive ways.
That may be, but if you take the longer view, most of the world's surviving literature has been concerned with violent death. Consider the carnage of battle in Homer's Iliad. Oedipus tearing out his eyes because he murdered his father. The end of Hamlet, with bodies strewn everywhere.
Oh, how I wish I'd had the benefit of a classical education. I must remember to look at A Midsummer Night's Dream again.
What I am saying is that tales of violence and murder like ours are in a great tradition. It's stories about people having the moral vapors in a middle-class drawing room, which are a modern aberration. I didn't make a personal choice. I work within a tradition.
Of course, I quite understand.
We don't seem to be doing very much work.
I think we're doing quite a lot.
Then maybe we should have some lunch.
Oh, perfect. Well, will Mrs. Chandler be joining us?
I'm afraid she's not in good health.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Maybe the next time you visit, if she's feeling better.
That would be delightful. He made us sound like the mad woman in the attic. Nobody in Hollywood ever saw her when he was working at Paramount. Rumour had it that she was nearly 20 years older than Chandler himself. Billy Wilder thought he was ashamed of being seen in public with a woman who looked like his mother. I adore family secrets, don't you?
The Lady Vanishes was one of Sis's favorite movies, so I thought that maybe next time she would like to come out and meet him, if she chose. But it would be her decision. I wasn't having Mr. Hitchcock nosing into our affairs. Did we have children?
I believe you mentioned lunch.
Lunch will be very simple. I'm afraid I've no time for fancy food.
Raymond did not lie. The Chandler's cook was obviously on day release from a chain gang. So, tell me what happens.
Happens?
In Miss Highsmith's book.
You know what happens.
Yes, but I'd like you to tell me.
Oh. Directors do seem to make a habit of getting me to do this.
You said you felt we hadn't done much work.
Very well. At the start, two men meet on a train. One of them's weird, a bit of a psycho. He's called Bruno. He wants to kill his dad, whom he hates, so that he can get his hands on his inheritance. The other man wants to get married to a rich senator's daughter, but he's already married, and his wife won't divorce him. He's called Guy. So Bruno the psycho says, let's swap murders. I do yours, you do mine. I kill your wife, you kill my father. That way, neither of us can be traced, and both of us get what we want.
In a nutshell, perfect.
Now, to my mind, there's a lot that doesn't work with this scenario.
Agreed, but do carry on.
Well, Bruno, the psycho, somehow gets the impression that Guy has consented to his proposal, which, from my point of view, is problematic, to say the least.
Agreed.
So, anyway, as a result of this still problematic conversation on a train, Bruno decides to go away and murder Guy's wife. He does murder her in a fairground, and then he comes back to Guy and says, I've done my murder, you do yours. Now, in the novel...
Never mind what's in the novel. That's our story, The Swap Murders. That's what I've bought.
You don't care about the rest?
Not at all.
Even though you paid a lot of money for it?
Well, as a matter of fact, I got it quite cheap. It's a first novel, and her agents didn't know it was Alfred Hitchcock buying the rights until it was too late.
Can I say something before we go any further?
Of course.
In the original novel, the main character, Guy, the one with the problem wife, is an architect. This makes him an intelligent and substantial character. In the treatment you sent me, he's been turned into a tennis player. Now, it seems a complete betrayal
Let
of
me
the
tell you why. there's a sequence in my head. Here is our main character, Guy, playing a tennis match. As the shots go between him and his opponent, the heads of the crowd go with the ball. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Only one man's head isn't moving, and that's our other main character, Bruno, who's already murdered Guy's wife. And his head isn't moving. He's just staring at Guy, while the other heads go left, right, left, right. You like it?
I still think he'd be better as an architect.
I value your opinion.
But
let's talk further when you've completed your first treatment.
Don't you want to...
This has been a delightful day. Thank you so much. Sorry, I think I trod on something.
This is Taki, our cat. We've had her a long time. Both Sissy and I are very fond of her. Do you like cats, Hitch?
I admire them. Efficient, conscienceless killers.
I should have remembered that all directors are sadists. It's just that some of them hide it better than others. But I was a professional, and I was being well paid to do a job. So I reread the Highsmith book, and I reread Mr. Whitfield Cook's treatment in order to prepare my own. And I decided I would demonstrate to Mr. Hitchcock why he was wrong. I did not tell Sissy what Mr. Hitchcock had said about our cat.
The more I thought about this project, the more I knew it was right for me. I started storyboarding sequences. I did some location work. But as Alma pointed out, I did not as yet have a script. And as I reminded her, writers are thoroughbred horses. They need to be given their head before getting them to do what you need.
Hitch!
Raymond!
Come into the garden.
He looked badly hungover and ill-tempered, but that didn't stop him from carrying on drinking. So I did my best to put him at his ease. It was still too soon to tighten the reins.
Mr. Hitchcock held forth that morning on a great variety of subjects, doubtless intended to inspire me. How he'd shot the opening and closing images of a rather dull silent film of his called Champagne through a champagne glass, about watching the great German director Murnau at work and hearing him say, "What you see on the set does not matter. All that matters is what you see on the screen." He even talked about the grapes he was growing and how Prohibition had destroyed the California wine industry and how it was finally recovering. Everything, damn him, except my new treatment for strangers on a train.
Had probably never been done before,
Hitch,
even...
Can we discuss my treatment?
Of course.
Well,
it's very interesting, but you appear to have gone back to the Highsmith book.
Miss Highsmith has intellectual pretensions, and I think she's overdosed on Dostoevsky in her adolescence, but still, there's no denying it.
No denying what?
The book's way better than Mr. Cook's treatment.
In what ways?
It makes more sense.
But from my point of view as a filmmaker, that is not necessarily an advantage.
So, you're still convinced, despite my treatment, that Guy, the man who wants to marry a senator's daughter, should be a tennis player instead of an architect?
I'm afraid I've already shot a lot of the tennis match footage.
Can we go back to the beginning again?
Whose beginning?
Highsmith's. Spare me the fatuities of Mr. Cook's version.
You want to tell me her story again?
No, I don't! I hate telling directors stories again and again. It's like being in one of the circles of hell. But what else can we do? That's where the problems start. At the beginning of the film, with two men meeting on a train.
I have to disagree.
Oh?
The film begins with a symphony of intercut feet. Two men revealed by their style of footwear and the luggage they carry, heading for a train. At this point, we don't see their faces, but the feet tell us they're destined, fated to meet, and their lives will be interlinked.
Okay. Then they start talking. And one of them, the crazy one Bruno, makes a proposal. He suggests they swap murders.
For what they say, I'm relying on you.
I just don't see how I can show Guy accepting this proposal there and then. Either he thinks it's a great idea and gives a clear go-ahead, in which case there's no tension, no story, or maybe he's stupid as a punch-drunk boxer after 3 bottles of bourbon and just doesn't understand, or maybe he's simply not paying attention. Well, now I come to think of it, there's another problem with the opening. Are these guys supposed to be pansies?
I beg your pardon?
Homos. The way this effeminate weirdo called Bruno tries to talk to this other guy, the athletic guy who's a tennis player, or, in my opinion, an architect, it's like he's hitting on him.
Is this a problem?
They could look like perverts.
Aren't we all?
Well, for my part,
Nothing is said. It's all in glances. You should see my film Rope. Those who think they know will know, those who don't won't. It just makes it more interesting. I thought of getting Robert Walker to play Bruno. He's played so many clean-cut boys, and he's just out of rehab.
I just don't think in this way.
Well, if we thought the same way, what's the point of working together?
Okay. We don't say they're homos, but somebody somewhere will think it. But still, there's a big problem. Why does Guy, the intellectual tennis player, agree? Or seem to agree? Seem to agree to the extent that Bruno goes away and strangles his wife. It all moves too fast.
Well, this is where your excellent dialogue comes in.
But if I don't believe it, I can't write the dialogue.
You're sure about that?
Of course I'm sure. It has somehow to make sense.
Sense as in common sense. Common sense has nothing to do with the movies. They're dreams.
Well, I happen to be a writer of fiction like Miss Highsmith, and I need a certain plausibility.
My wife has recently been reading your latest novel, The Little Sister.
I'm flattered, but it is not
Alma trained in script continuity. She has the sharpest eye for inconsistency I know. Now, in chapter 15 of your novel, Marlowe turns to the little sister of the title. She's told him about her brother who's in deep criminal trouble, but in her view is not the black sheep of the family. And suddenly, Marlowe realizes that the black sheep is her sister Leila, who's a movie star. He makes a connection.
And your point is?
Well, if you go back to chapter 2, the little sister simply says that her brother is not the black sheep of the family. She makes no mention of her sister Leila. So how does Marlowe know this, unless he's picked this information out of the ether?
I'm sorry. People read through my books before they're published, and they should have noticed this. I'll write to my publisher, and I will...
Ray, it doesn't matter.
But it does! You're saying I'm a bad writer.
No, not at all, Raymond. My point is that nobody cares. Unless you're obsessed by continuity like my wife, you wouldn't notice. People don't worry about these inconsistencies. Your books are doubtless filled with them.
Oh, so I'm not only a bad writer, I'm a lazy craftsman.
Oh, Raymond, calm down. I'm not blaming you for this. I don't think it matters. My point is that our public are children who want to be told a wonderful story. If the story you tell is intriguing enough, they're happy to lie back and enjoy it. Plausibility doesn't bother them.
So, what do you need me for? Just feel free to go and find somebody whose writing you do respect.
Well, I do respect you as a writer.
Then listen to what I am saying.
I am listening.
Okay. So here, for the third time of asking, is my problem as a writer. The hero, Guy, if we can call him a hero, in some homo way agrees to a murder. Why? How?
The symphony of feet will help you. Audiences will be expecting these two men to interconnect in some way. All I need from you is the dialogue.
I think we'd better move on to something else.
Well, willingly. Consequential narration doesn't interest me.
Bruno murders Guy's wife in an amusement park. Then he goes to Guy and says, "You owe me a murder."
And that's where I stopped reading. Whitfield Cook did the rest.
The point is that in the novel, Bruno pressurizes Guy until finally he cracks and agrees to do the murder. He goes and kills the father. Mr. Whitfield Cook's treatment says he doesn't.
And you don't care for that?
Frankly, I don't. It's a betrayal of the whole central idea.
What central idea?
Of shared guilt. Of guilt driving somebody crazy.
But that's an abstract idea. It's taking place inside somebody's brain. I deal in moving pictures.
So, if I accept Mr. Cook's treatment, Guy pretends to Bruno he's going to kill his father, and we go through a whole sequence in which we believe that's what he's going to do, but in fact, he's coming to warn the father. But when he gets into the bedroom and warns the father isn't there. It's Bruno in bed waiting. It's ridiculous.
You forget the dog.
The dog?
Oh, didn't I tell you about the dog? I must apologize, but it helps enormously. The dog on the staircase. The guard dog whom Guy has to placate to get upstairs. The dog's not expected, so the audience will be very anxious. Guy will be nervous and smooth the dog's muzzle. The dog might bark, but it doesn't. The audience will be on edge. They'll forget about the fact that Guy is going to murder a man he's never met.
Except when Guy gets to the bedroom, it's Bruno. A man in bed, smiling at a man who he's chatted up, who's been employed to murder his father. Why not just say these two men are homos?
It's very perverse, isn't it?
It's disturbing.
Well, of course. Isn't that its essential charm?
But how can you get this sort of material past the production code office?
Well, I'm a Catholic boy. I go to the production office and I discuss my problems with them and listen carefully to all their suggestions. Then I do exactly what I want. It's very like going to confession.
But Miss Highsmith's version of what happens is the only truthful one.
Truthful but dull.
You're not giving her enough respect.
I'm giving her a fee instead.
I understand what's going on in this novel. You don't.
I don't care to. Content doesn't matter. I'm only interested in effect.
So you keep saying. We've sat here for hours talking about every subject under the sun except the goddamn book, and now finally we're talking about it, and you don't want to listen.
Raymond, I'm sure you can produce dialogue as witty and enchanting as in your novels.
I wish I shared your optimism. My head is reeling.
An excellent state for it to be in.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. I need a drink. Several drinks, in fact. I don't know what more I'd have said if Sissy hadn't appeared. She'd decided to get Jose to help her into the garden to meet Mr. Hitchcock. I suppose it was something to do with the Lady Vanishes.
She was not the mad woman in the attic. She was rather charming in a faded, old-fashioned way, which in cinematic terms is much more unnerving than a raving mad woman. She was dressed young, but she must have been 80 if she was a day. I felt a twinge of sympathy for Raymond Chandler. He was clearly devoted both to her and his cat, and both were not far from death.
I trusted Sissy's instincts. She didn't like him. In fact, she said she thought he was rather common. He reminded her of the fat boy in Dickens' Pickwick Papers who said, "I wants to make your flesh creep." That decided me. He goaded me, deliberately. I would show the bastard as I'd shown the bastards before. So, now I was going to produce the finest goddamn screenplay of my entire career, and it was going to end in guilt and madness, and everything Mr. Hitchcock didn't want.
Of course, I discussed it all with Alma. His books are full of incomprehensible plots and delicately hinted perversion, fueled by deliciously tart dialogue. Why couldn't he give that to me? How could he have turned out to have been one of those tedious creatures who insist everything must make sense? I made my next visit to La Jolla with sinking heart. There was still a chance he could give me what I wanted. I yearned to have dialogue like his in one of my movies. I just hoped he wasn't going to be too drunk. Raymond!
Hitch! Come in, Mr. Hitch, my lord and master. Enter. Have a drink.
I remember thinking, oh dear, he's very drunk.
I remember, well, not a lot.
Your good health.
Yours? Well, what do you think? Hitch, I can hardly bear to call him that, stared at my offering with the eye of a man holding a rotting portion of fish and chips in a scrap of filthy newspaper.
So, in the end, Guy goes mad.
You said the ending was an anticlimax.
It still is.
How can it be when your leading man is in a straitjacket?
Shall I tell you my idea for the end of this movie?
I take it that it's not the same as mine.
The sluttish wife is murdered in a fairground. I like fairgrounds, but the novel never returns to the fairground. For some reason or another.
No, there has to be some reason.
Yes, but it's not important. Bruno wants to play something that proves Guy is guilty of his wife's death. A cigarette lighter would do. Now, in the fairground, there's a carousel, a merry-go-round, and that's where the final sequence takes place. The two men are struggling for ownership of this object, while the carousel spins round and round, getting more and more out of control. A little old man creeps underneath and pulls the brake, which makes the carousel stop, but, of course, it's going so fast that it spins out of control, and Bruno is killed, and Guy is vindicated because he has the cigarette lighter, or pair of sunglasses, or whatever the screenwriter decides is appropriate.
You'd end the movie like that.
Why not? The audience will be giddy, their heads will be reeling, they'll be so excited and relieved when it's over.
The image of the merry-go-round, or carousel, or whatever you want to call it, spinning out of control. I think I've come across this before.
Oh, you're well informed.
It comes from an English detective story called The Moving Toy Shop by an author called Edmund Crispin.
My lawyers are clearing the rights at this very moment.
Edmund Crispin's work represents everything that I detest about English detective writing. Smug literary references and quirky academics moonlighting as private detectives. Implausible murders with not a hint of the color of blood or the smell of death.
I don't defend his work. I take what I need.
Yes, you do, don't you? You are without principle. You are without artistic integrity. Do you seriously believe that a farrago of gratuitous fairground hokum is a satisfactory conclusion to a study of shadows and guilt?
I'm afraid I do.
Then I want nothing to do with this project. If we continue, then not only will Guy be in the straitjacket, I'll be there too.
Well, 2 in 1 straitjacket is a bit of a squeeze.
Particularly if one of them is you. Go on, you fat bastard. Get out of my house. Squeeze yourself back into your limousine. Get out.
Well, this has certainly been a robust exchange of opinion.
Get out, you fat bastard. Get out now. Sissy calmed me. She stroked my hair and played my favorite nocturne. She said I was clearly right. I still didn't dare to tell her what that bastard had said about our cat.
I held up the first draft of Mr. Chandler's script before her eyes, and I held my nose, and then page by page I ripped it apart and dropped it in the bin. She was Cenci Ormond. She was biddable and smart and just what the project needed. If Warner Brothers hadn't been quite so keen for prestige, I might have found her earlier.
I carried on working because I was being paid and because I owed it to myself. I'd like to say to Miss Highsmith as well, but I've never met her and probably never will. I sent the revised screenplay off to Warner Brothers. My work was good. I received no word from Mr. Call Me Hitchcock. Omit the hitch and add the cock. Eventually, 6 months after we'd started work, I found out that the bastard had got someone else to write his goddamn screenplay.
I felt bad. Actually, I didn't care. He was an impossible drunk, and he'd been paid very handsomely for utterly unusable work. Farley Granger played Guy. I wanted William Holden, who had a dangerous masculinity towards which dear Farley could not aspire. Still, he looked very pleasant in tennis shorts. But when it came to the credits, there was a twist.
There was a twist. Cenci Ormond, who had dutifully done what Mr. Hitchcock asked, was not a name. Well, it's quite a name, but you know what I mean. So Warner Brothers
said we have to have Raymond Chandler's name on the credits. He has the prestige we need for this project. So, reluctantly, 8 months after my first visit, I went to talk to him.
There is nothing in this screenplay as filmed to which I would lay claim.
I agree.
I disagree with every decision you have made about this script. The carousel sequence at the end is a mindless triumph of cinematic bravura over truth.
I don't necessarily see that as a criticism.
So, what did I give to this screenplay?
Astonishingly little.
Is it moral for me to take a screenplay credit?
Well, this is Hollywood. If you're offered a credit, take it. Do you want me to apologize?
You're an arrogant fat bastard.
Well, you're slimmer than I am, but the rest applies.
Everybody will think that this screenplay was written by Raymond Chandler when it wasn't.
That's movies, Raymond. Just smile for the camera. Strangers on a Train was a huge success. The leads, apart from Robert Walker, were weak, and the script was poor. But the carousel sequence was a triumph.
No guts, no characters, no dialogue. But, of course, it's Hitchcock, and a Hitchcock picture always does have something.
I went on to create any number of scary movies. One of them did end with a man staring at the camera ready for the straitjacket. The moral is, well, there are no morals in the movies.
I never wrote another screenplay, to Sissy's great relief. Instead, I went on to write my last fully completed novel. It was called The Long Goodbye. Oh, and our cat died soon after.